pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you all very much. So we have just a moment of silence, please. Very well, thank you everybody. So let's jump right into it. We'll start tonight's budget workshop with carryovers that we had tabled from previous meetings. The first one will be actually carried over from November 1st, 2022 workshop. First one will be the library. So in the budget package, there's a sheet that Holly has generated. It's a single page. These are the options that she would like us to consider.
Before we jump into that, can I just get the numbers of where we ended up at before looking at this? We had an initial budget of $216,297, and it was increased to.
Yep. According to my notes, the bottom line we had from last meeting was $219,512.
Okay, that's right.
By the nodding of the heads, I see that that's correct. Nice. Compliments to my math teacher, which probably used the library quite a lot.
Probably.
You had an opportunity right there, Holly. So, thank you for the clarification, Peter. So, the budget we had from last time, we did increase. The original asking was $216,978. So, with an addition and decrease, the net add brought the bottom line $219,512 for the budget. So, per the council's request and suggestion and the input we have from the meeting last time, as I said, I had spent some time and came up with 3 options: the golden option A, the silver option B, and the bronze option C. Any comments from council? Any discussion on that? Would you like to go through the details on that? I assume everyone's had a chance to read through it. So tell you what I'd like to do. Let me open up to the audience. If anyone has any questions or comments, I assume everyone's had a chance to look at this. Is there anyone in the audience that has a comment or wishes to speak? Yes.
Recording in progress.
Heather Donahue, 461 Webb Road. Holly, it's actually a question for you as far as the 3 additional hours per week. Where is that going to be distributed? Is that going into evening hours? Is that extended Saturday, or
It would
to be determined?
Well, it would be to be determined, but more than likely it would be on Saturday, and we may do like an additional hour or so in the evening during the week, but that would be like on a rotating basis. Mm-hmm. And even if we decided to do the additional hours, or if you were approved it, we still have some playing around to do. And no matter what happens tonight, I think this next year we're gonna test things out, because I did put out a survey and I had 61 responses, and I asked people about adding additional hours for Saturdays, for other days, not changing anything, and the majority was to add on to Saturday. So we'll play with things and see how it goes.
Okay.
So, question I would have for you, Holly, if you would please, on your option C, you're stating to eliminate the computer budget of $1,000, move to books, and do some juggling within house. You don't anticipate Any issues with the computers or upgrades required?
I know we won't need any patron computers because we just got a grant a year or two ago, so all of those laptops are new. The staff computers are the only ones that might be a little iffy. There's one in particular that might be, but if we had to, we could actually use either a patron one for a short amount of time, or I can look for a grant to see if I can get one. Because at least grants for technology is a lot easier to get than anything else.
Right. So by staff and patron, you mean the computers, by patron, computers are there for use by the public?
Exactly,
And
yes.
the staff are the ones that the staff uses?
Right.
Just, okay, all right. Anyone else in the audience wish to speak? Questions or comments? Council, let's hear your thoughts on this. If you'd like me to start the ball rolling, honestly, and not to be the Grinch of the season, however, I was satisfied with the budget as presented before. I think we got to be fiscally responsible, not only with this, but with the entire budget for the whole town. So we're looking at an increase overall. We just got to be wise how we do it. With the caveat that I'm sure, Holly, between now and the next time we meet here, we'll have an anticipation that you would request something else, justifiable, of course. I'm not questioning that at all, but, given, was it 16,500 that you had for the last number of years with no increase?
Right.
And we got feedback from the town, so we know that's a very important part of it, so we need to consider that as such. So my thoughts are, starting with the 219,512 that we have from the last meeting, looking at option C. That way $1,000 taken off, and she says she's quite capable of handling the computers as such. Doesn't anticipate any issues, no required updates known yet, anyway. Yes?
I just had a question about that. Catherine, if you could. Department heads are given the budget. They don't have to, they can move that wherever they want to, right?
The monies will stay in the accounts, but they
So if
are,
it's specifically, for instance, for the computers, if it specifically says $1,000 for the computers, that has to stay for computers. It can't be allocated other places or for other
they
things.
can't move the budgets around themselves. But if, for example, the money is not spent in the computers and an issue develops someplace else, another account will be over while the computers money is not spent. We go to the bottom line. We try to keep to the lines, but the budget since COVID have not worked out, the way that we've planned any of them.
But that would be something that would come to the
That would
council,
come to the
right?
council, so the council
Will
actually-
the council approve moving one budget to another?
That's what I mean. The council does
So are we talking between the budget lines or individual budgets? Like if the library budget ran over, we would find money in another budget.
Lines
Transfer.
within the library, I assume.
Well, I was thinking specifically this line, because does she have to really come to the council to
No.
present that, to move $1,000 somewhere else, or?
No, she would just not spend the money in the computer account and overspend another
Okay, well,
account.
that's what I was looking for.
But is there not a limit to that, though? I mean, if there's a line item here that's say $20,000, would the department head have the option to move that within their own department?
No.
At will? Okay, so
No.
there is a limit, though.
What do you mean by limit?
Well, we're talking about $1,000 here. Yeah, and you just said
Just
that
as an
the
example.
department head has the option to use that as necessary. However, if it's a $20,000 line, then now you're saying no, so there's going to be a limit where the department head
All right,
can
we-
arbitrarily make changes.
We have to keep reasonably close to what we have here. For example, if somebody had a project that was, as you said, $20,000 and all of a sudden they wanted to use it for something totally different, it would be, unless it was an emergency, it would be unlikely that we would do that. But if you had in your computer budget, let's say you spent $500 and had $500 left over, that means you have $500 unexpended. And then in another account, you have $500 and spent $500 more due to an emergency. That's fine because it's going to the bottom line, but you do try to keep to the sub accounts as much as you can.
Right, understood, but is there not a limit to where these
We have an internal spending
Common
policy.
sense and not getting too carried away.
So there's no internal spending policy controls around what department heads are authorized to do up to a
It would
certain
be
dollar
the-
amount.
It would be the purchase order system. So let's say somebody decided they wanted to do something that nobody had ever talked about, and there was no real reason to do it, it wouldn't get approved. But if somebody had a maintenance contract came in $500 over, it would be fine, and we would approve that.
So by the purchase order system, you being the town manager to approve that or disapprove it, that's the check and balance that
That would be
you're
the
talking about.
control process, yes. So if we think we're not going to use any computer money, you could take it out and move it to books now, and that would make it clearer. Or you could leave it as is, and we'll see how things go.
Well, yeah,
But moving it would make it cleaner.
well, no, that's not when the officer talking about. We're going by what Holly has presented to us for officers to discuss.
Right, and I was just,
Quite the question.
the reason why I had that question is because I was wondering why that, why does that option have to be presented to us? It's $1,000.
Well, because it's $1,000 off this. So so if I'm reading it correctly, instead of $219, it'll be $218.
No,
No.
no,
What
it's
are
not
you
what
looking
they
at?
That's not what I was moving.
But you're saying eliminate the
moving the money. I'm just moving it.
Moving it
Move
from
it to
one
another, okay.
bucket to
Fine,
another.
yeah.
But that's what I mean, why is that even an option for a budget letter? To me, that shouldn't even
Well,
be.
bottom line, it's a valid point.
I was using that as an example.
So, right, no, you're right. So, option A has an increase, option B has an increase, option C is as is. But her intention is to, showing it's been looked at and looking at the bottom line, we don't really need this, but we can use this on something else.
Yeah.
I mean, so that shows that it has been reviewed and some logic applied to it.
So if we really intend to move the $1,000 in the computer budget to the books, we should do it now, and it'll just be cleaner and clearer. But if you just are going to wing it, just leave it as it is and see how things go. Understanding we're not going over the bottom line of the budget.
So bottom line is, if we do choose option C, with no increase to it, we can certainly keep it at that $1,000, and if you need to later, move it within your budget. We can certainly change it tonight. I just assume leave you that option.
We do.
If we do go with option C, leave that option to you, and if you decide that you need to make changes around, that's something that you would talk to the town manager.
So I guess since Howell's had the floor, I would stick with what you had said with keeping the 2019 512.
Okay.
Would be
So
my thought.
essentially, option C will be great. Lindsay, what do you think?
I like option A. I think we can find the money from somewhere else to offset that. That's my personal feeling. I know we're still kind of midway in the budgeting process, but I'm up for option A or B at the very least, but my first instinct would say option A.
Well, so my follow-up question would be, do you know where you want to take that money from?
I do, general assistance. Based on a 13-year rolling average, and that would bring that from $15,000 down to like seven-ish thousand, which is what I did the quick math on earlier. So it's about 8,000 left over. I'd rather put it here, and then we can always figure out general assistance if it's needed down the road, versus putting that money there to begin with, which I think we've talked a little bit about. And I know there's confounding variables with needing to help folks, but based on the 13-year average, I think it's a fairly good number. We could go from 15 down to 7 or 8 and then find that money here. But I'm not trying to like orchestrate that to happen. That's what my brain said we could do to compensate for what the library needs, which clearly the town has spoken and said they want. So that would be my thought.
Okay. Craig, let's go to you, please.
So, I'm with Lindsay on that. So, I agree with option A being where I would like to see it. I believe in the need in this town for that library, and I believe in the need for the expanded hours. I think that, the families have spoken, but I see it in my own family, and the amount of use that it gets from there, and it holds a very dear place in my heart, and honestly, in what I believe this town is truly kind of built around. So, I agree with that. I would stand firm at option B, though. I would be hard to waver from that. To say that someone has not requested cost of living adjustment for 21 years would be insane. That's unheard of in these days, right? We understand the cost of goods has gone up in every other market. We just talked about that last week in the public works, having to adjust heat, having to adjust fuel. And when we look at a minimum of $1,650, I couldn't see us going below that. And I certainly agree. I certainly agree with the general assistance. I mean, the average is. I don't have the figures. I didn't pull them like she did, but the average is not there. The average is less than 50% of usage. Right. Not one year has approached more than 14,000. So we know that even on the worst year out there, we're not coming close to touching that budget in general assistance. And I think that that's definitely some place we can look at.
Okay. Eric?
I agree. Option A. I mean, I have all kinds of reasons, but they're the same reasons, so. And we already talked about the general assistance fund last meeting, and we all know
Yeah, it's the
it's
next
been
option.
underutilized, and I'm not suggesting that, I don't think that's important at all, but it's all about getting the money in the right bucket, which we've talked about 100 times. And for now, I think that the library is the right bucket. If it turns out that there needs to be $20,000 worth of assistance, we'll figure that out. But historically, that hasn't shown itself. When it shows itself this year, we'll budget different next year.
Okay. Jason?
Yep, I mean, I'm on board with that. It's kind of what I was thinking before Holly presented the 6 hours. I like that idea. You can get it to like 6 hours on Saturday versus 3. I think that'd be a huge benefit to a lot of people. That's the number one thing we heard from the many, many emails and communications that we've got. So, I mean, I think it's pretty minuscule, really. When you, I mean, over the total budget, I think we can come up with that much. I mean, people have said they haven't increased that budget in forever, so.
Okay, so why don't we do this? We have 3 options to go with, so let's go around the council and vote for an option. Is everyone good with that? Gentlemen? You okay just going on vote for? I know we discussed it.
Yep.
So I'll start with Pete.
Mine's to keep the 219,512 as budget.
Okay, so option C.
Yep.
Lindsay?
Hey,
I will vote also for option C. Craig?
A.
Eric?
Hey,
Jason?
Hey,
Okay. Very well. 4 votes for option A, 2 votes for option C. So let me get my advocates fired up here. I am not prepared with modern technology. So we have 219,512 plus 7598. So 227,110.
the 1650, is that going in general supplies? Is that where that goes?
No, that's in under equipment books, which
Oh.
is books, films, streaming, it's all of that stuff.
Equipment purchase? Computer, oh, books. Periodic.
So any final comments with that, council? Going to option A, add it to 219,512, bottom line 227,110. We all agree?
Yeah, I agree with that, but I have one question on the,
Yep.
Catherine, were the assistants, were they given that 8%? The 2 assistants, were they given the 8%?
Yes,
They were, okay.
yes, because those were down around the minimum wage.
That was one of the few
Yes, we needed to bring them up.
employees that had the 8, and the rest were looking
Right.
at from the 5 down to the 3.
Kind of keeping it in my mind for
Yep.
other
Yep.
things as well. Thank you.
Okay, so all in favor of 227,110, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, nay.
Nay. Nay.
Lindsay?
Oh, I said yay. Sorry, wait.
I
said yay.
We have to.
Aye. Sorry.
poll.
Oh, you do individually. Okay.
Yeah, nay. I just want to make sure we're clear on
Yeah.
that. I vote nay. Jason? Aye. Eric?
Aye.
And Craig? Aye. All right, very well. That budget will pass at 227,110 for the library. Thank you all. Let's move on to general assistance. That is page
Off they go.
37.
Once the library's open, everybody.
What page, Mike?
37. Next one over.
Thank you all very much. Really appreciate it.
Yeah,
Thank you all very much for coming up.
I'm going to stay for a while, but I just wanted to get
All right, Catherine, you got details you want to share on this to provide clarification?
I did
Or,
provide a handout from doing the
Okay.
research from the last 12-year period to find that during the difficult years, and this is at a period in which the accounts and the general items have gone up anywhere from 16 to 46 to 60, I think it was 64% increase with the housing. So we have significant increases in the 2022 for 2023 budget for general assistance. Some items have gone up considerably, as we know, from the fuel and everything. So we're already getting phone calls and people coming in. So I expect that 2023, once we get into the snow comes and people have to fill up for oil, that we're going to have a lot of applications.
I have a question, Catherine.
Yeah.
Oh, is it okay?
No, go right ahead, please.
Your projections with the increase since 2014, that math in that right-hand column of that handout you gave us. So you have it for each year from 2014 down to 2021.
This is just looking at the increases that took place in 2014 and
But-
then what took place in 2022 and just projecting it.
Right, but the
Anything-
left column is the actuals, correct?
Correct.
So you projected back to 2014 up to 11,000, but that's already passed. Yes.
Correct, yes.
So I was just unsure of why you did that.
I was trying to figure out if we had the increases back then, what would those amounts have been?
But the increases didn't take place back then. They
Right,
were projected, but they never happened.
But I'm
correct?
looking at what it would have been if we had the prices that we had now.
And I'm just curious as to what that
Because I
would
wanted
do
to
if
see-
you have the actuals
I
from
wanted
the
to see-
years.
I
Why would
wanted to see
you?
what the impact would have been, because we have significant increases so large that we haven't had those before to that extent as to what was.
But we have actuals. Like, these are actual money dollars spent for those years. So I understand projecting from 2022 on now. Like, if you say, we think that the cost of fuel will go up to this by this percent, and we think inflation affects these numbers X, Y, Z for the future.
I was
But-
just looking to see what would the impact have been in those particular years if those were the prices, and went and looked at the prices that we had back then, because I have copies of some of the general assistance ordinances. So just looking to see what would the impact have been if we had the prices that we have now back in those particular years, just out of interest.
Oh, okay. So it's out of your personal interest, not, these numbers are like not anything we ever spent or any.
Correct.
They're just projections,
So
and we
that-
took the current
so that-
increases and backed them up to 2014.
So that column on the right for our discussion
Yeah.
is.
It's not anything,
not
okay,
important.
thank you. I just was
I
very
understand why she's
concerned.
looking at it.
Yeah.
What we had.
Okay.
It's kind of like looking at it, right? So I just went through 2014 through 2021.
Okay.
Got an average spent, just spitballing here, it's a little under $6,000.
Right, and I took all the way to 2022, and I annualized it through to the end of the year, and it's 68.93. I mean, give or take, whatever, rounded up to 7,000. That's kind of where my head is at.
So-
if you guys think that makes
So
sense.
the other thing I'd done is, we were talking about that 75 and some change from the other one, so I took the 5130, divided it in half, so that leaves a number of 7,565.
That's what I think. That's
So we cut that in half. So that number, given the last 8 years, 9 years if you want to count this year, which isn't done yet, so that's more of a reasonable number.
Yeah, I think so too.
Even using the column on the right, it's 8850. per year.
Those are just, I would use
Understood,
that
but
number
that's looking at
but to
today's
make the
dollars,
point.
so that's
Today's
accurate
dollars.
average from this
Yeah.
year. That's fine, I understand what she was doing, that's fine.
Yep.
Using that number, the 88.
I mean, we could set another number and put it at an even 10, that's still 5,100, taking out the budget, and we're covered for it, so we don't have to have the gyrations later of balancing the numbers and going from one budget to the other. I mean, we have options we can do with this, but I guess what's important to look at this is that historically, 8 years, 9 years, we've shown that we've more than covered.
Right, well, to Lindsay's point, it was close to 65, on the right column it's 85, my option would be split the middle. Right, cut the budget in half, $7,500.
Yeah,
That's where
that sounds good. And then you've cleaned up the library and general assistance, at least those two will neaten up and be a net zero.
There's your Walsh.
Yeah, that's what I would say, 7,500 makes sense to me. And then we can adjust, pivot from there if needed.
So the food has a 16% increase for 2022 to 2023, October on. And the fuel was 46%, up to 64% for housing. These are the maximums that we would go to if the people had the need. So these are increases that we will see. So unless we want to change things quickly, if I get close to this, I would prefer we do something like Michael said, put it at 10,000, just to cover us. Because we do have more families moving in, we do have the motel bills.
I have a follow-up question to the comment you made about the motel being filled. What is the relationship with that and the town? Like, it's a business, yes? The motel is a business?
The motel is a business. However, in many of the communities that have motels or hotels, people who needed housing were eligible in the towns they were in to find a place and went to the motels and hotels in other towns. And so that has finally happened to us.
So you meaning people have moved into the hotel locally that are paying customers of the hotel, and they bill the town for their fees?
Now, some people that live there from week to week, and they're not general assistance
Right,
clients
right.
or state of Maine clients, but some have been paid for through KB CAP's housing program or state program.
Right, but we're speaking to the town of Pittsfield's general assistance fund. You just kind of, and maybe I'm reading into something that you're not saying, but are we, the town of Pittsfield, utilizing general assistance funds to pay for that housing of those folks in the motel?
Not as of yet, but we have been, the state has talked to us about this.
Okay, and how will that
So we will
decision?
have some applicants.
And so, okay,
We had 2 pickup applications, but they're not back yet.
What was the discussion with the state? What do you mean state was
The
talking
state
about?
explained to me that the town, if they have an unmet need, and they have been moved into the hotel because they were homeless, the town is responsible for them.
even,
Let me do a quick follow-up. Who chooses to put them in that hotel though?
It sounded like.
I mean, it sounds like it could be a borderline mandated cost to us, because
It will.
another entity chooses to put
It
them
will
here.
eventually be, yes. You used to not be able to pay and move people to different communities, because the cities would be hit quite a bit. However, with the COVID and homelessness issues increasing, you can move people to other communities now. We can put
No, but who can do that? The state?
yeah,
the state, KB CAP, another community.
what entity of the state? Like what department?
Department of Human Services.
Okay, can we get some follow-up information on that for the next meeting? Because I'm concerned for multiple reasons, but I understand that, is there a connection to the town these people are coming from to see if they utilize general assistance fund out of their budget before they moved to our town and took money from our budget? Do you know what I'm saying? You're saying they're moving
It
on.
would start with the other community, or more likely from the KB CAP housing program, or from a state of Maine program.
So, okay, I think maybe some
I don't
follow-up
think
information
any
on
one
this would be
particular
helpful.
town is saying, well, we'll drive them all over there.
But if 100 people decided, oh, Pittsfield Motel, we're gonna all go there, we can't afford to stay, but we're gonna just move in and somebody's gonna, I've never heard of this, so I'd like some follow-up.
It is
information.
something that's changed in the last few years since COVID.
Okay.
It is something new. We were always prohibited from paying for a hotel or motel
Right.
payment. They had to find another place, even if it was in another community, and then we were responsible up to their unmet need.
Right.
But now, because of the homeless situation and just the, all the issues that went on with COVID and everything, with places shutting down or rentals not available as much or rent going way up, a motel or hotel is seen as a reasonable accommodation for housing.
So as a follow-up to what your statement was about doing follow-up on this item,
Yeah.
I'd like to do so also, because I had questions the last time, but will that affect what you want to
No, I
discuss on
think
the budget?
7,500 is still where I'd like to keep that for now. And we can pivot upward if needed, but that's where I'm at.
I think we really should have $10,000 to protect the town
Okay.
and its residents.
Vernon, you had a question?
Yeah. Bernard Williams, 115 First Street. I am the Salvation Army rep for this area. And I will tell you that you're going to get swamped, because I'm already getting swamped with people looking for help with their electric bill. They're getting shut off notices. And as far as the motel is concerned, the one in Newport is basically booked solid by KB Cap and Penquist. The backside of it has been since sometime a year ago. Department of, I think it's DHHS,
Yeah.
some branch in that, is putting people in these. I got hit the other day with two people they brought up here from Waterville that had no food. You're gonna start getting that. They get kicked out down there because, one of them, because the lady she'd get drunk and take things all to pieces, and they booted her out, so they dragged her up here and dumped her off with no food and no car. But I think you're walking in the mud if you go to 7,500, because I just see this one being brutal.
But I understand what you're saying, but my concern is, and I think I'm probably reflecting what Lindsay's saying too, it's if another entity is making the decision to burden Pittsfield with that cost, it's a unfunded mandate in essence. If you want to talk,
We've got a lot of those.
I'm sorry.
We've got a lot of those unfunded mandates.
Yeah, no, I understand it, but this one is the one we're dealing with right now, Bernard. And it's one that we have very little control over.
If DHHS puts them in there, they'll pay the bill. The ones that I'm getting hit with are the guy that comes up the turnpike and decides this looks like a nice place to stop, and then you're stuck with it. And why in God's name anybody would come north this time of year, I don't understand.
I was hoping you weren't going to say why in God's name want to come to Pittsfield.
No, I
I'm
don't
glad to
understand.
generalize, Bernard. We're going to have a different discussion.
It's a great place to stop.
Great place to stop.
It's a great place. It's beautiful.
You know, people come from South Carolina up here this time of year with no job, no money. That kind of boggles my mind a little bit.
Yeah, Craig, go ahead, please.
So, I guess that would be part of my question, that'd be part of our follow-up, but what is the recourse that the state is willing to take if they tell us that we have to pay and we say, our general assistance fund is empty, we have no funds in which to pay for this, much like you.
Right, it can't be bottomless.
Right.
We have obligations
You
to
can't
put
just
money
keep
elsewhere.
kicking that back to us, right? So, is there a recourse that they're threatening us with if we don't have that fund available?
It's not open-ended, it can't be.
Not as of yet. However, if you don't address certain situations, you can jeopardize your funding. Now, whether they would go ahead and do that or not, I don't know.
But if we had funded, we wouldn't be in jeopardy.
I think we really need to cover this. Bernard is exactly correct. People are showing up now. Now, some so far are not eligible because of things they've done, but there are going to be eligible people. And then you can have the people that live in town who have been here all their lives that need help too. So I would leave this at $10,000. I'm very concerned.
Do we have copies of that application that we can have?
The general assistance, I can get you a copy.
Oh,
It's pretty
yeah.
detailed.
Yeah, I just would like to see what the questions are. Yeah.
So if we move it to, we move it to 10 grand, and that's, we save $5 grand out of this, and we only move, library up. It's only a $2,700 difference. Like it's not, or $3,000 difference.
I was hoping that you would suggest that. If no one was, I was going to. I mean, based on the experience and the history that the town manager has with this, and Bernard's feedback, I mean, it's reasonable. I'd like to be able to say we'll be fiscally happy about things, but this is why we had tabled this one to talk about it more, because just the topic of it.
I'd cut it down to 10 grand and we can look for money elsewhere if we really need to cover that.
Yeah, I agree, and I'll poll the council, but I do want to add a comment here. Yeah, I'll get to you, Heather. This is going to require some follow-up, if you would, please. I know it's kind of busy, but we'd kind of like to get more information on this. Yeah. So if you can get some of those applications, so we can get copies of those, and if the council has any specific questions on that, I know the next couple of weeks are going to be kind of full. I'll get right to you. I'll get Heather back there. Heather, you got a question?
A couple questions. Catherine, at a previous meeting, there was a question as to whether there's a state required amount based on our population or something that we need to put into our general assistance fund. Is that an accurate?
Not anymore, however,
Okay.
we have to budget responsibly, and for a community of our size, certainly $10,000 is not a lot.
Okay. And the follow-up part of that, I guess, would be, I completely agree that, based on the economy and where it's going and the needs and demands that people have, it's not just they're facing increases in heating costs or fuel costs or electricity, it's all costs. And so that, I think, is the biggest difference that we haven't seen before, is that a lot of times, fuel prices will spike, but you don't necessarily see increases in electricity and massive increases in food costs all at the same time. Usually it's one or another, but not all of them. And that alone is going to put a burden on people's budgets and the ability for them to feed their families and heat their homes. The other question that I had was more along the lines of, I don't know that looking at the application for general assistance would actually change any of the decisions that you would make around the actual funding part of it. It's a mandated application. It's not one that the town creates, correct? It's because it's right. So there's mandated information there.
We've had suggestions for this price, but that was information we want to do for follow-up, independent of what we're going to decide on the budget tonight.
Okay, I thought you were asking for
For
follow-up.
clarification, no.
To another thing.
No.
Okay.
Well, I didn't mean to interrupt. I think that's where you're going with it.
Right, I was wondering
Okay.
why that
All
would
right.
impact the budgeting part of it to have the application.
Gotcha.
Well, I can speak to that, because I was the one that asked for it. So the reason that I asked for that is, yes, we say that we have an increase in people coming to the town of Pittsfield, right? And that we are concerned about encumbering a burden, right? So what I want to know is, why do we feel that we're going to have that burden if a large majority of these people are going to be ineligible based on our application? So why would I put money aside for something that's not going to be affecting us? So that's why I was asking for that on the budgetary side of it, right? Because if I have 20 people that come here and 18 of them aren't qualified based on our basic application, I don't need to add any additional money or be concerned about that. That was my piece on that.
Okay.
I want to take care of people. Don't get me wrong. I don't want to see one person go hungry, go cold, be disadvantaged in any way. I don't want to see that. But at the same time, when we have historical proof that that our average always falls below a certain number, to just continue to set that money there aside and never touch that for items in our budget that do need to be taken care of. I just think that we need to look at everything again. Questions don't hurt people, right? Questions just give us an informed position in which to make a decision. That's all we want.
All right. Thank you, Craig. So Mr. Berthelot has been very patient here. Go ahead.
Thank you. Ray Berthelot, Hamilton Terrace. Do we also take into account the burden and the costs associated with town services that are used that have to go to the motel? In the last few weeks, I've seen the police and the ambulance over there twice. 2 times the police, 2 times the ambulance. That's taken away from town services. I know I've had personal experiences where the ambulance was not available, and I'm a taxpayer, and it wasn't available. I had to wait 20 to 30 minutes because we share an ambulance with Newport also. And now the ambulance is hanging out at the motel. And let's just say I wasn't too happy when the ambulance couldn't get there in a timely manner for an emergency.
Well, I think that's why additional discussion is warranted. That's the clarification that, Craig was looking for, and Lindsay and myself. I mean, this has been something that we've asked over the years, now that we have a potential impact to the town and the residual services like the ambulance or even the police. Excuse me. So this is going to be certainly worth a follow-up. Yeah, another quick one, Heather.
Just to follow up on Craig's point and Lindsay's, as far as the amount that's been used in the past year and the difference between the budgeted amount and the actual amount that was used. And Catherine, this is more of a question for you. Does the difference in the budget amount and the expenditures, does that extra amount get put into the general fund?
It will go to the general fund at the end of the year and then be allocated out in a subsequent year, yes.
So as an idea for that to minimally impact the budget for this year but still provide an adequate level of services and account for increase in the library budget, can the council take a portion of the unallocated general fund and say we're going to use the $10,000 or keep the funding where it's at and say we're going to pull that specifically out of the general fund, put it into the 2023 budget specifically to cover these costs so that there's adequate funding there, because this is a safety net, it's there in case you need it. And regardless of whether the money's put into the budget or not, if there are massive increases and large influx of needs for services, whether by residents or people coming to town, the town is going to have to, if they apply and they qualify, we need to fund it. Because those are definitely, when you look at that application, the income, and I mean, these are people that are very, very close, below the poverty line, actually, much below the poverty line, to qualify for these programs. They are the neediest people that need, basically. So the question is, can you allocate an amount from the general fund that is unallocated to this particular line item to minimize that increase as well as meet the needs for this, what could be a very significant year?
Can you give an efficient answer?
So to carry forward funds, the only way that we can carry forward an item that's not expended from the current budget is if the project did not take place. So this is like a maintenance budget, so I believe the answer is no, but I'll do a little checking on it.
Well, I'm not really thinking of carrying forward funds from 2022 to 2023. I'm thinking of the historical amount of dollars that have been collected to pay for this program that haven't been used. Those dollars over the last however many years have gone into the general fund and are kind of sitting there just waiting to be used. So that could they be specifically allocated to relieve pressure or pinch points on this budget?
So basically what would be proposed is to take more out of the unappropriated surplus than what is placed in the revenue budget now. I increased it substantially, so I think no, because everybody would try to do that had their budget cut. So I'm thinking the answer should be no, because it's like a maintenance budget, and I already increased the unappropriated surplus allocation over $200,000.
Okay.
Jason, did you have a
Good point.
question?
I was just kind of on the lines of Heather with carryover and what it can be used for and where it's going. Because we've only used 8% of this year's, $13,000 budget. We're at like $1,300. So, we'll have say $10,000 left over if it goes into a general fund for next year. And we go over on this, we just borrow from that, and we're covered.
It all works out in the end.
Right, or you borrow from Donnie's transfer station like you
Like that fund does.
stated last week.
So Eric, Jim, something you want to?
I want to make a
What's
proposal.
the difference?
Can we vote on 7,500? Can we do that? We got a lot of budgets to talk about.
Yep, I'm with you. I just wanted a chance. I wouldn't get a chance to talk.
I'm good.
I ask if I need more than 7,500, can I spend it as we've done in the past because it is an emergency item, or do I need to get approval from the town council?
You need to tell us what the charter says for that.
We do the transfers at the end of the year. As long as you do the transfers at the end of the year, and we take money from another budget that has money left over, that's fine. But if we're not gonna do transfers, then I'd have I'd be over the budget.
So we may be able to avoid that. I like Jason's proposal, make it 10,000,
Yeah.
and that should be enough buffer, I'm hoping. And if we do get to that point where we need to have that, we'll have that discussion when it happens.
Sounds good.
So would you be willing to consider that?
Yes.
Okay. So we have a proposal for decreasing that budget, general assistance, from 15,130 down to 10,000. Pete, what are your thoughts on that?
I think it's a bad time to decrease, but for the sake of, for moving on, and it looks like we'd be covered, I would be okay with the 10,000.
Okay. Lindsay?
Same.
Craig?
10,000.
Derek?
Yes.
Jason? Good. And I will vote in the affirmative also. So general assistance budget will be at $10,000. That is all set. Let's move into the meat phase of this meeting, please. Let's go to the fire department, and that is, I'm not prepared, fire department.
25.
25, I was going to say that.
It is a 0% increase as proposed in the prior budget.
Approved.
The fire chief did move a few accounts away.
Easiest one so far, except for the town council's pay. So, the fire department budget, as stated, is a 0% increase from last year, 97,365. Any comments, Bernard? Do you want to add any stuff and fluff to that?
I have a question, was, is there going to be a pay raise this year?
That's the budget we're working on, right there. What do you mean pay raise?
Well,
Did you put it in your budget?
I did not put one in there, because
Well, that's the budget we have to work on here, Bernard.
Did Catherine put it in his budget?
No, because generally they don't spend all of the money.
Right, because they only get paid when they go out to calls, is that correct? Except for, you obviously get paid, right?
He has a stipend.
Right, yeah, he's, yes, okay.
But why wouldn't you change the rate of pay for the firefighters to go along with the cost of living?
Well, that's my question, we're going to get a cost of living, 'cause
Okay, now I'm confused here. You have the town manager, your department head. You were requested months ago to prepare for the budget season. Now you come
We
here and
have
say,
never put-
your budget doesn't have the increase that you want. I mean,
We
where's
have never
the
put that
disconnect
in
here?
before, it's always been done after the budget was. Department heads have never put the cost of living raise in.
That's correct.
So then, yes, we are making cost of living adjustments for certain departments at certain rates of pay.
We are.
But
Right.
it's not in here, but we've calculated every other one up until tonight, so I'm sure we can make that happen.
Well,
Right?
I want
mean,
to know why this department wasn't done like all the rest.
Because we've always put in what the fire department has requested, and generally they don't use all the funds.
We're going to use it.
Yeah.
Well, what's their, I mean, there's no rate of pay on here like there is for other
They're all
positions.
different rates of pay depending upon their position. There's a chart that Bernard has.
So would it be by percentage by their current rate of pay? Is that what you normally do?
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, if the
Or you
cost of
don't-
living raise is 3%, that,
Well, it more or less is, unless they're like, minimum wage, then we've gone like 8%.
I only-
So if we do the 3% like we do all the other departments, that's $1,170 increase over that 39.
That makes sense. At least.
Yeah, I mean, at a minimum.
I've got 2 people right now, and I've got 3 people that have just applied, it will all be at minimum wage. So, whatever number of hours. I'll live within it if you give me the 3% across the board.
While we're calculating that, can I ask you a quick question, Bernie?
Yes, ma'am.
Under travel and uniforms, do you anticipate that you'll utilize those funds this coming year where you didn't in the prior years? The under travel?
Right, under
and-
travel, we're usually overdrawn.
Well, this, okay, maybe I'm, all right. I might have the wrong, I have the up through end of September
Right,
current to
right.
actual, there's 0% spent under.
Right, because I put that in December on a yearly basis.
Oh, okay, so you will spend it by the time, by the end of December.
You know, I don't, there's not much there for travel, with $150 or something.
So Catherine, historically, what has been done with this line item? How has this been handled? I've been through several of them, but I haven't.
Well, it's been different. Lately, it's been the same increase as the others have. Before, it was handled differently.
Right, but you went through at 5, the low ones at 8, and we're going back at 3. So at 3%, so according to what I'm hearing, line item 01-15 showing $39,000 has no cost of living increase in it, correct?
Correct.
Very well. At 3%, that's $40,170. At 5%, that's $40,950. And at 8% across the board, it's $42,120. So it's $3,100 increase with the 8% for the fire department cost of living. Right.
So, I think we have this a little different than what we normally do, right? So, normally we're looking at an actual person's salary. This we're looking at a bucket of money, right? So, if we were to take what has been spent through September, 18,962.
That's not, you can't do that, you only get paid twice a year. You get paid in June and December, July and December.
July, okay, so you're at 30, okay.
So it should be 100%.
It's right now, it's going to be-
So how do you extend your current budget to the end of the year, see where you stand on your budget? Do you follow that? Do you track that? Let's say you're going through July and you're at only 30% for that line item, or you're 75% and you're only halfway through the year. Do you track that somehow, even if you do get paid twice a year?
Well, when I get a report at the end of the month, if I look at it, yeah, I know how much is there and I know how much the payroll was in the 1st of July.
Right. No, I understand that. I mean, you can get a snapshot of that up to date, but you compare that to where you're supposed to be at that point in your budget. If you take $39,000, let's say it's $3,000 a month, just approximately, just use numbers to mess with. So if you got to go through the month of June, there's 6 of them, so there's $18,000. At end of June, you're at $19,500. You're $1,500 over your budget so far, and you still got another half year to go.
And those, you know, the winter months and the spring months are busy months usually. That's, you know, the 1st of July, excuse me, the 1st of July this year, we had more calls than we had till the middle of September last year. Since then, it's, you know, we've gone right down, we're just about where we were last year.
Right. So how has that $39,000 covered you from year to year? Have you?
We've never gone over. Because we've always, you know, what happens is if we get up there and we spend it all, some people don't get paid.
What's your how many?
Wait, hold on a second.
The
Say that again?
yeah. Hold on 1 second.
Oh.
What is your capacity for firefighters as compared to who you have there now? I mean, do you have it set up for 20 guys and you have 10? Or?
For many years, we were in with 35 people. Now, if I could get 20, I'd be tickled to death.
So how many do you have though?
I got 15 at present minute.
So this budget's set up for 15 people?
Set up about 18, based on some of them being, again, that for a good several months at minimum.
Okay. All right, Eric. I didn't mean to interrupt. I want to maintain my train of thought.
Well, I just made a comment on people not getting paid.
Like
ran
me.
out of money.
I don't, you know, if I work 6 hours, I just don't put it down.
Is it a combination volunteer situation? Like volunteer, like I don't know.
I'm fine with that. No, you know,
It's a
we'll
volunteer.
live on
They
what's
get
there.
paid for it. They go over, they go.
Call outs.
And if we overrun that, we won't spend it somewhere else.
It's volunteer.
Bottom line is that we will not, you know,
This is.
good Lord will on the treatment, we'll stay within our.
Yeah, so they're both. Okay.
Now, I mean, I think if you go back and look, it's been many years since the budget in the fire department's been overexpended.
In 20 years, it's only happened once that we had to do a transfer. We're not very efficient with the budget and very prudent, so there's money left over at the end of the year.
So,
When you go in, you know, and you're not planning on bending tires, and you blow one, and they're $900 a piece, that kind of screws your budget out in a hurry. You know, by the way, you can't put one on, you gotta put them both on. Which just happened to us on engine 4.
so I don't have any issues with a 3%, based on that 39,000, given, he's not at full strength and, it hasn't been, approached that budget level for some time. I mean, it's reasonable, a 3% across the board on the other ones. I would like to look at this,
We're going.
if it can be changed in the future, look at, if we're looking at pay, if we're doing cost of living, we should be able to allocate across the board, if every
Well,
employee.
they would have gotten that anyway. It's just that the allocation didn't change, because generally he has money left in his budget. But they would have gotten the same increase as the others did.
But it's not in the budget, though. He was saying there was no increase from last year, so there was no.
He didn't use all the money in his budget.
Okay, so you're saying the cost of living is gonna come out, the
It would
anticipated,
come out anyway.
Catherine, it's not gonna make it this year, because we're running about the same hours we did the first 6 months, and that's gonna suck her dry at present.
But you're gonna have money left
In
your
other
budget.
places.
Considerable money left in your budget at the end of the year. I mean, Bernard's always brought back money to the town.
So, Bernard, let me ask you a very candid question. This 97,365, given what you've seen for the last 20, 30 years, what you anticipate, it's hard to anticipate what the fire department's going to do for a year. Is this going to be comfortable for you? Will you be able to operate effectively and efficiently with this budget?
Based on the fact that our trucks are getting older.
Yeah, capital expense. So.
No, I'm just talking about maintenance.
Maintenance.
No, I just took engine 3 to get its inspection, it will not pass without it. And I don't know if it's fiscally responsible to spend much money on a truck, a 1986 truck.
Do you have known anticipated cost of the maintenance? Do you have like regular maintenance that you have in here, or it's all reactive?
There's maintenance on the pumps on a yearly basis, your oil changes, your regular.
So you're talking about something that might happen given the age of the equipment. Okay.
People keep talking about, engine 4 being a new truck. The engine 4 is a 2003 truck. It's 20 years old, folks.
So when you have these opportunities where the budget has passed and you have an unintended expense, how was that handled? Did you
Rob Peter to pay Paul?
rob Peter within your department, or did it within your department?
And the problem we're running into now is, that the state is starting, and I don't know how much they're going to push this, to be pretty hard on NFPA requirements, which says that you throw your helmet away after 10 years, whether they need to be thrown away or not. You throw your boots away as soon as they get a little bit worn soled. And it's a pretty wasteful system. And I don't know who plans it, but probably manufacturers.
Yeah. The rubber suppliers apparently. Rubber.
A static gear that 2 years ago I paid $1,300 for, right now is $2,200.
So I'm thinking in the future we need to reconsider how we look at your department. The anticipated, unanticipated expenses, whether it's comfortable. Every department's going to have an unanticipated expense. I was talking about the water and sewer. Annalise could probably share some story. We don't have time tonight for that, though.
If you got,
You got a whole bunch, I'm
if
sure.
you have equipment
So that's kind of one of those things you set yourself a budget, you roll the dice. I mean, I'm rolling the dice with my truck, still making payments on it, hoping it's not going to break down between now and another year and a half. So get back to the question. Will this budget, as written, give you efficient and effective operations?
Based on my lack of a crystal ball, yes.
Okay. Yeah, if we had one of those, we wouldn't be searching down that person in California. Go ahead.
So just the historical actuals, so like 2019, the actuals are 59,000 burnt. 2020 actual burnt 62,000, and then 21 is spiked up to 83,000. And then I don't know what last year was, or what this year will be, I don't have a crystal ball, but
So as written, we can leave it as written and call that good. Because historically, it should be fine, and as Catherine has mentioned adamantly, is that cost of living hasn't been applied because that's always been covered by the extras in the department. No, we understand the issues we have with the equipment. We get that. No one's no one's going to say we don't need to talk about the fire department. Let's move on. But it's one of those things we just don't know.
I'm a big fan of a line item balanced budget, right? And I think that that's one thing that if you look here, I understand that we can always rob Peter to pay Paul, and I get that, but why?
Why? Because this is what we've been talking about earlier. We have these budgets that aren't looked at on the nth degree. I mean, when Holly had made the comment that being in charge of the library, she knew exactly what our electrical uses were. I mean, to me, you should know that anyway. And that's no comment on you and how you do that, but to know that should be every department head. That should be every town, every department head, every person who works for any company should know that.
Right.
And that's hopefully the level we can get to so that we do know, okay, it's going to be the 4th of August, where am I on this line item, this line item, this line item? Where that starts, I don't know. To give the department heads a form to work with, maybe some standardized training, maybe some feedback from the town office that, okay, here's your expenses, what we had today. Once a week, here's your report. Library, here are the expenses, here are the budget line items, those two. Vernon, here's what you have, and Donnie for his departments. I mean, they should know everything on every line item at literally any day of the week.
Yeah, if we want to be concerned about maintenance, I think that we should see a budget that has that maintenance budget increase. But we are looking at it historically in a place, and I'd like to see that the wage increase. I think that's right. I think that's fair, right? We're looking at every town employee. We should look at it that way. It needs to be dealt with. But I also agree that there's plenty of room in this budget. I would like to see us have balanced line items. I think that makes sense.
Here's an option. Pass as is with a caveat. Next year we expect this and this and this. We can give direction to the town manager. This is what we'd like to see from our department heads. We want consistent format or a monthly report, something. I don't know. I'm just spitballing here. Paula, you had a question?
I just had a comment about what you just said about our actuals. When I became director, I had to sign the electric bill and the oil bill. I haven't done that since 2019. So I don't even see them anymore. And so that's why I'm just saying that, and I didn't even know I could ask for actual. So now I know that I can do that, and so I'll do that every month. But if I didn't, okay.
No, we're in agreement. What I'm saying is that whether it's within your purview, your responsibility, or within your capability, I'm not making comment on that. I'm saying ideally, every department head should have this available somehow, whether it's asked for, whether it's given, whether it's available online or something like that. Yeah, Craig.
That's what I was just getting ready to ask. Are they given or supplied or have available a monthly P&L?
They are available and have been available, and we have talked about that at the department head meetings. Some of the department heads come in and request information, not on a monthly basis, but maybe every 2 weeks. So everybody looks at it differently. But in the past, the council was clear that the items that were central service type items like telephone, electricity, all of those would be done in the town office, and so that's what we had done.
And that's fine.
So if we want to change, that's fine.
Well, no, I just think that they should get a monthly P&L.
If
I'm in my P&L every day at work, right? I mean, that's just what
if it can be identified and accounted to a specific department's line item, they should be made aware of somehow.
Absolutely.
I mean, that's another discussion, I guess. We've identified areas that we can improve, so hopefully we have a discussion next year. It's going to be a lot different.
So those records are available and have been available.
Yep.
I just think they should be pushed, right?
No, I understand. We'll get a little off track. I understand it. It's relevant to a point.
And you do realize those are available online also, because they're
Catherine,
part of the council package.
We'll talk about another time. I want to talk about the budget here at the fire department. So, I suggest we keep as such, the 97,365, based on what Bernard mentioned, that he can do this and give him the historical data the last 3, 4, 5 years. Any other discussion, comments?
So we're not adding 3%?
They would give it anyway,
Okay.
yeah. And they have for a number of years.
But by the extra that's left over, but that's something that needs to be adjusted for next year so that it can be identified so that we won't have to depend on
Right.
fluff.
Yeah, this.
Yeah.
I'm just asking, just so that the employees see that movement. I just asked Bernard if there was a bucket that he would like to see that 3% pulled from out of this budget. We'd make that adjustment now. It would be recorded that way, and that way they see that they are getting
They don't see the budget anyway, I just tell them.
understood, but some of them could check, right? They could listen to this thing, they could, whatever, so.
So I'm not following what
I'm asking Bernard if he'd like to reallocate some of his funds officially into that personnel budget.
So,
Right.
I guess we would identify where that would normally come from over the last several years. What line item or line items was that money taken to account for?
Depends on whether it was money.
Based on what we have, it looks like it would come out of contracts and/or safety equipment.
What line items are you talking about here?
So we would be contract services 25, so 525.
How much did you say?
No, I'm sorry. 05, yeah, 0525. So like this year, we have a remaining budget of 4661.
Well, but I just passed in a bill for almost $900 on the compressor. We haven't done the annual testing on the fire trucks yet.
Okay. How about equipment purchase? We're at
You could take 1,000 probably out of contractual.
$1,000 contractual. How about equipment purchase 1,000?
So line item 2505, you go from 6 down to 5?
Yep.
Okay.
500 out of equipment.
15-10, is that right?
Yes.
Okay, so we're gonna go 3,500 down to 3?
And then out of 0535, take 500 out of that.
0535, 500? That much? That's a quarter of it. That'll work? Okay, so 2,000 down, 1,500? So that's $2,000 that you want to take out of those three and put into, you want to add that $2,000 to 39, make that first line item 41?
Does that,
Is that what you're talking about?
We needed 3,000.
That, what's that?
We needed 3,100, right?
No,
When you get 3,100?
I thought that was the number you said earlier.
That was 8.
No, at 8%, it's 4,200, 100.
That's 5%.
42,120. That's 3,000, yeah, 3,120.
Oh,
That's
right.
8%.
Yeah, no.
The other departments, we started at 5, we're putting them at 3.
At 3. Yep, I think 3 is the right thing, right?
Top one's 41.
So at 3, that's 40,170.
5% across the board.
Mike,
Yeah, 1 second. Yeah, I saw. I'll get to you, Heather. So if you want to move these numbers, you got to come up with a number that you want to move for it. I mean, we've got $2,000. You want to arbitrarily take $2,000 for that 39,000. And the reason why I say this, and I'm being particular about this,
Right.
is that we have a system now where at the end of the year, the money is allocated with the increase, so that 39,000 has been the upper limit for a long time. It's never been broached. So now you want to add another $2,000 to that.
Well, this year, if I misunderstood what was happening with the way the pay scale went, so he's at 18,962. If you double that, that's 38,000. So that's right at it. If you add 3% on that, we're at 40 or 39.5. So I think that putting that on there and him being able to tell his employees, you just got a 3% increase. I think that's important, right?
Which they would receive anyway.
They would receive it anyway, but it's not one of those things where I'm going to move money to get you something later in the year. I can make it happen, right? If everything else falls in line, the stars hit and blah blah. We're putting it in, right? It's in the budget.
It's done.
If we're not gonna budget by line item, why don't we just have a lump sum at the bottom? 97 grand, call it even, whatever. Like, if you're not gonna follow this, if this isn't gonna be put in line by line, we're gonna rob from an account to pay in another account constantly, and that's an okay method, then why are we scrutinizing every single line of the budget?
I'm going by what you guys want to talk about. This is,
This is what I want to talk about. I want to talk about why on every other budget we want to make sure there's the right dollars in the right account. When we get to the fire department, 97 grand, good. Yeah, we'll make it work. We'll shuffle funds. That's fine. But it's not fine because it's not consistent. And we just need to be consistent. Because if not, we might as well just have a lump sum $97,000 budget and move on to the next one.
I agree with you. And we've been talking about having these reports standardized amongst all departments. That hasn't happened.
Mike, how can we even do this if we don't have a current year burn with a reforecast to the end of the year? How can we even have these conversations? We don't even have current information for this year.
Is that information available? Can we get that? Can we get that information?
So you would have had current information.
I have it. I have till September. I don't have a reforecast at the end of the year. I have no idea that he pays his guys twice a year. That makes a big difference when you're looking at the burn. You can't do it by the month.
No one, it's never been requested that we have the exact forecast for everything this early in the
The
year.
forecast is not exact.
We
The forecast is what you think.
We always have it for the public hearing in December, and that's when it's been available.
But
except
a
for my figure.
reforecast is not exact. It's a budget, but with current information. That's all it is.
All right, well, it's something that has not been requested before, so.
I have requested it before. We've had
I
this conversation
understand, and
before.
I'm working on it. However, we have considerable issues with the TRIO program. You would have had the October for this evening. However, there were 5 expense budgets that would not post to the budget. 4 have been resolved, but 1 will not post. So if I give it out, I'm giving out incorrect information. I spent from Friday last week until now trying to get that done. I have considerable items. I'll be working with the TRIO program tomorrow.
A reforecast is sitting down with the department head and saying, Carter, what do you think you're going to spend the rest of the year? Look, here's your budget. What do you think? Are we close? That's what that is. It's a conversation. It really is that simple. And it's standard. Like, I have never budgeted like this in my entire life. I know I've never been on the town council before, but this is something.
Well, I agree with you. I don't know if we have that information available to be able to act on it this budget season. And I agree with you 100%, but I don't know if we have the capabilities, whether it's TRIO, whether it's not formulated right, whether it's not final right, I don't know. I don't know if we can break that out to that level. And given that, the fall and the early summer, early year are always busy, the best we can do is get an average per month and extend that way.
All right, so let me back off my request a little bit. Would it be, do we think we have enough information here to look at our year-to-date, or our actuals for the last 5 years, look down through it line by line and say, hey, you've never burned 100% of this budget. Hey, you burned 150% of this budget. Hey, you burned 20% of that budget. Let's get it in the right bucket. Is that unreasonable?
Do we have that information available?
So
Are you-
I was
look
told
at it.
specifically when I said I would go back to 3 years.
Before on a per line item?
Per line item.
Per line item, right
Okay,
here.
so I don't have that with me. My apologies. We can certainly do that.
So I was specifically told when I said I would go back and do 3 years, not to do that, just to do the last year.
By who?
Which, by the council. Because I would have gone back even further. I'd have to do 2 reports. I can't put it all in 1 report due to how the software is set up. But I could do 2 separate ones by going back to an old year that we kept and creating the history and then doing another report.
I'd be okay with that. Just 1 year. Go down through the actuals of 1 year.
We can do that.
All right, and again, you would have the actuals, but we need to resolve the issues with the conversion because there are new issues that have developed, and they have created a program, a fix to fix what's happened with the receding.
What do you mean conversion?
With the conversion of the information that we have from the prior TRIO years into this year, things were going well, but other items have developed, and they did make a fix to.
So the list that they have that shows a per line item cost for last year for the fire department, that's not correct?
No, that's fine.
Okay. Then, is that what you're suggesting that we look at and use?
No, I'm suggesting during the budgeting process, before this sheet of paper ever makes it to the council, that's how it's scrutinized. That's
And-
how it's developed.
There's no one in this council is gonna disagree that we've talked about this before. But this is what we have to work on right now.
So let's table it.
We can do that. Table it, I see it, hold on a second. Table it, with, what direction though? What do we want for an output for the next meeting to be able to work on this?
Him to right size
I
every
want the
bucket
right
of money
number and the
based
right
on
accounts.
his actuals.
With his best knowledge. Like, I want his complete input. Even if that number is not the same, even if it's more, I just want his.
So let's say, line item 10-10, cleaning supplies, what last year's budget was.
If he's comfortable with that, and he looks at his actuals from last year, and that proves to be accurate, absolutely.
Well, this
Check the
is what
box.
they've
Move on.
already done. They've already put their budgets together based upon what they've spent.
You're right, Catherine. I mean,
No.
pulling money out of cleaning
No.
supplies.
No, we need to look at what it was last year, because this is the same as the budget as last year. So it hasn't been based on what they spent, it's based on what the budget was last year, but last year's budget was not given to this kind of scrutiny.
But every year it's different on what the expenses will be in the fire department. So it could be that they would overexpend in some areas and increase in others and decrease in others. And so he has chosen, like one other department head, just to keep it the same because they will have money left at the end of the year.
And to be fair, the council is saying that's no longer acceptable because it's not an appropriate way to do a budget. And from other areas of expertise where we've all come from, where we do budgets, that's not how you budget. I mean, we take tax dollars out of people's real paychecks. It's real money, and we're just saying, yeah, even though we only spent 80 or 70% of it, we're going to take that much again. When we're trying to right-size the community's input to this town and make everything fit, it's not the appropriate way to perform a budgeting cycle. Now, it can't be fixed for this year, most likely, unless we table this and rerun the report, to Eric's point. But this is not how you do a budget, and I'm not trying to offend anyone. This is like archaic and disjointed, and there's hundreds of pages, and I'm surprised that it's gone to 2022 before this has become a bigger issue. That's my 2 cents.
I want to put a pause on it very quickly. Heather, you've been patient. You got something you want to add briefly, please?
I was hoping we could actually just get back to reviewing the budget and deal with the overall bookkeeping issues that the council wants to deal with later on. But reviewing this budget, Mike, you had mentioned, I'm confused. Ron said that when he was talking about the cost of living raises and putting them in, I believe the number you said was $39,500 was what it was going to be with the 3% raise across the board, assuming the twice pay for the year with the increase. Is that what it came out to
So,
be?
no, I just threw a round figure out there. So I said if you took what he's projected to spend this year and then add 3% to that, it'd be between $39,500 and $39,800.
Okay.
Yeah. So that was just
It
a
was
round
just an
figure.
option that was discussed. It hasn't been acted upon.
Well, that's what I was trying to sort out, because there was a bunch of numbers that was thrown out in a hurry, so I was trying to sort that out. So at that number, assuming it's a doubling of that like 18,000 and change that you pay twice a year because of the paid checks, right? Plus the 3%. This budget that you're looking at is only off by up to $800. And it's not a far stretch to find an extra $800 within the budget, which I believe is what Mike started to do by looking at the equipment line. And the one that you mentioned was 1510. But there's a second equipment line, 2005, which I think is the one that Ron mentioned. But I'm not sure which one you were talking about taking money out of. One of them has to do with non-vehicle maintenance for equipment like radio
Part of that discussion we were talking about, it was line item 0535 from 2,000 down to 1,500, $500 out of that. 15-10 from 3,500 down to 3, and 2505 from 6,000 down to 5,000.
So that's what I was confused about.
But even then, that's still something we're spitballing. It hasn't been acted upon. We're just throwing out numbers to see how we can work this.
Well, that's what I'm wondering about. Why are you pulling all those numbers out of the different...
The discussion for that was, we asked Bernard,
Can I
because
ask my question?
please do. Please be
My
efficient. You
question-
gotta move on here.
I'm trying! Why are you pulling money out of all of those other budgets when you only need to find $800 to be at the maximum of what is expected to be paid with an increase in salaries? Why is there?
So part of that, and I'll interrupt you here because I know the answer to this, what it was going to be a minute and a half ago, was that we had asked Bernard what line items are usually rated to cover the cost of living that is not specifically called out here on line item 1, $39,000. Bernard gave us 3. This one you can take 500, this one you can take 500, this one you can take 1,000. So there's $2,000 that we could take from line items and put them elsewhere to cover, let's say, an overage of this that historically is more, or potentially doing the cost of living. However, I didn't see that as a necessity because there was discussion made that there's always money left over. They take that money, that's where they get the cost of living. The important factor that Craig wanted to say is that it's actually printed, it's been recorded, these guys have a 3% raise, cost of living, so they are felt important like everyone else. That led into discussion, okay, well, if you've got $6,000 here, and you're arbitrarily taking $1,000 out, how do you know you're not going to need that? So there's $6,000, and that led to what Eric's saying. Why are we looking at every single line item specifically? How do we know we're not at way over on that one, or if we're looking at a $7,000 line item, and in the last 10 years we've only expended $2,000. That $5,000 can need to be taken out, used in another department, or used somewhere else in here. That's where the discussion has gone. That's where we are right now. So the discussion has gone from looking at the budget process, trying to get it standardized amongst the department heads so that we can first have a standard reporting form. Second, have the department heads be responsible for watching this stuff closer so that they know real time within a day or two where they are every single line item for which they're responsible. And third, they have that information available, whether it's requested, whether it's given, whether it's on a network that they can download themselves. That's where the discussion's at. And I'm trying to get back to, let's talk about the budget. It sounds like something that we can add to, like we're talking about general assistance. There's a topic that we want to talk about as a council later on, but to get through this budget, let's deal with it this year, and then next year be a bit more specific of what we expect from the department heads through the town manager.
I understand all of that because I sat through all of that. My point was, why are you randomly taking money out of those budgets instead of using the historical information that Eric has in front of him to base the right sizing of those buckets on it?
We got
Craig
to
is
go
using that.
him.
I mean, he's
Right, so
He
what-
asked me the question.
So
I
what
answered
is-
him what buckets were traditionally over
Okay, so what is the
had
impact?
reserves, and he gave me the answers of which ones he wanted to pull. So
Okay.
traditionally,
I
it goes
understand that,
through.
but you have actual numbers in front of you
Right.
for the historical.
Sure.
And Bernard can answer questions about what he thinks he'll spend through the rest of the year.
And that's the other problem.
He doesn't do shit month to month, though.
That I see with this is when we pull money from one to cover another budget line item, how do we know where that money ended up?
Well, that's your actuals from 2021 would tell you those.
That goes back to the department heads being responsible for their line items.
Well, that's
having that information, because it goes through the town manager for the POs. That information needs to get back to them. They need to be held responsible and accountable for what their budget's going to read.
Because I know that if I have my business, if I tell my executive team I expect to sell X number of this product and X number of this product, if I come 10 short on this one, I can't say, well, I sold 5 more of this one. No, they're still going to ask me why I missed here, right? And that's what I want to see. We got to do it line item by line item. This is how we balance a book, is per line item. I do that in my home. I don't steal from my
Okay.
I don't steal from my car fund to pay for my house.
Okay, let me ask the council. What do you want to do with this budget? We have several options. We can pass as is. We can take out the $2,000. We can put that at the $39,000 level. We can table it and request information, more detailed, look at this line by line, which we should be doing for every department, every line item. I'm at your discretion. Tell me how you guys want to approach this.
I would like to table it till our next meeting.
Okay.
I would like them to be in the correct buckets. So this is for the team to do, right? So town manager and department head to sit down with their historicals and to sit down with their future planning and budget us line item by line item for this, where these expected are. Giving the 3% increase on salaries, I'll know 115, and down the list. And I think that at the end of the day, we're gonna see that this budget, to Catherine's point a few minutes ago, is high. And this might be where we're able to maneuver some of our money that we're looking for. I just want to see, maybe not, maybe I'm wrong, maybe it needs to be over, right? Maybe these budgets, when we pull historical, maybe we need to add money to his budget to cover it. We don't know that until this is done.
Well, historically, we can show that we haven't had to. I understand where you're going with it, but, you know, I hate to play the devil's advocate, but
I understand.
we apply to this, we gotta apply to everyone.
But I understand, but I hear that certain things aren't,
That's what we've been doing.
but I understand that certain things aren't paid until December in this, right? He's not gonna pay out certain stuff until December. He pays salary twice a year, right? So this budget is unique to every other budget where every other one you can watch month over month if you wanted to and see your track, right? You can see your forecast and adjust. But I think that this one needs to be tabled for 1 week. I think that should be enough time.
Okay, so the next workshop here is 11:15. Will we have something available for review by 11:15, Catherine, Bernard?
On 11/15, yes. I have numerous trio fixes coming, so I can issue the October expenditures and revenue. And then we'll work on the rest of this.
I'm gonna, can I sidebar for something on that, Rick?
Yeah, please.
Obviously, we're right in the middle of, right hot and heavy on the budget piece. By the beginning of December, our goal is to be to a budget number, right? That's where we're still heading.
Yes.
Yes.
The meeting after we have the budget finalized, can we have a breakdown from you on the inefficiencies, troubles, and how much the town has been disadvantaged by the TRIO integration? And we want to, I would like them to answer the questions as to why we, as a town, are having to suffer for that with the amount of money that we're paying for this, right? There needs to be some sort of recourse back to a company that dumps their product on us and then leaves us in a position where we've been fighting this for 5 months.
Other towns have had this issue over the last year.
I think we need to have that, so if you can just make your list of what that has actually had for problems, I would like to see that as a discussion item.
So, suggestion to table this till the next meeting on 11/15/2022 with the expected output detail line by line item.
That's what I,
Pete?
Yeah, I'm good with that.
Lindsay? Fred?
yep.
Eric?
Yes.
Jason? Yep. And myself. We shall table the fire department. I made a note. 11/15/2022 meeting. Let's move on to the police department, please.
Mike,
Yeah. Yeah.
there's no police rep in here, and I know these two people are
Okay.
from water and sewer.
Okay.
Do that.
Can we maybe jump to them and
Go back and, yeah, Animal's kind of part of the police department. So, do we not have, any police department here to speak on this? Have you got any feedback from them on this?
The acting police chief went on vacation.
Well, that's a good time during budget season, especially being acting chief. So,
Yeah, let's table it.
okay, that's fine. Okay, we'll table the police and, police department and animal control till, next meeting also?
Yep.
You good with that, Pete?
Yep.
Lindsay?
Yep.
Craig? Yep. Eric, you good with that? Yeah. Okay, very good. You're done. Okay, let's move on to water and sewer. They are pages,
44, 45 for water.
okay, gotcha, near the end. So, let's start with account 70-05, Water Enterprise Fund 2023, $829,354. So let's start by the obvious question. This is compared to last year's how? Annalise?
Yes, so this budget is higher than last year's budget, and the reason for that are the proposed capital items that were approved to be completed. Those items won't hit this budget fully in the next year because they take a year after substantial completion, but they're included in here for planning purposes and also for the fact that sometimes they hit the budget partially through a budget year. We just want to make everybody aware that these are pretty big expenditures for the water projects that were identified, Birchwood Terrace, and those type of items that were approved. So that's the reason for the difference. Otherwise than that, the budget amount is about the same as last year.
Okay, so what is the difference that you're looking at from last year to this? Is that the 215, 530?
Yes. Yeah. And basically, we went line by line to create the budget. They're not always the same as what was expended last year because things are different. We've really been running this system now. It was actually really managing the budget for the last couple of years. So we try to create a budget from the scratch up. So each year things are slightly different depending on what we're doing. I guess some of the I don't know if you want me to go down through it and explain items, or you just want to ask me questions.
Let's get some feedback from the council audience. Any line item council wants to look at specifically? Any details?
I do want to mention we held our costs flat for another year.
Well, I guess why don't we do this, Annalise, if you wouldn't mind, if you give us the bullet points, highlights. I mean, if you go down and look, say, okay, this line item, I don't know. I mean, I'll leave it up to you. I mean, I certainly don't need to have you narrate the whole thing line by line. But if
No, I wouldn't want to.
highlights or important points that you'd like
I
to
can
point
go over
out.
the major points and then anything.
Yeah, please. Let's start with that. That may, calm the waters or keep them calm, or it may,
stir it
raise some
up.
questions, may stir it up.
So
There's water.
other chemicals is a significant budget line. We dropped that a little bit from last year. Didn't find that we needed to have the whole amount. But basically, we do use a lot of chemicals on the water side, so that's around $25,000. That's 10-20. Last year it was $30,000. So that's a significant line. Materials and supplies for the distribution system. Last year that was 30. We dropped that down to 20,000. So we do use that for doing repairs in the distribution system, which we will expend that, but I think we'll be okay with that. Then another significant line item would be under maintenance of the distribution system, and that would be more outside service type stuff. And we do plan on doing the tank inspections this next coming year. So that line's pretty high. That's $13,000, but both of the water tanks need to be inspected, and we would do that in that account.
So this was probably less than last year's because the inspections weren't required, correct?
Actually, last year we were going to do the inspections, so it's the same. Sometimes things don't get done when we want them to get done. The water and sewer had a lot of issues this past year, a lot of things to accomplish, a lot of personnel, trying to get personnel, losing personnel, hiring new people, and that type of thing. So, yeah. So it was exactly the same as last year, but not because we just took the budget from last year. We took it because we needed it to do the inspections. And then under well maintenance, we have not cleaned the wells for a little bit of time. We had $20,000 in there last year. This year we dropped it to $15,000 because we don't feel we need to do as much as what we thought we needed to do originally, because we're actually finding that because we fixed so many repairs that the well is running quite well now. I use the same word twice. So it's been going quite a bit better there. Under the truck line, we have kind of jumped ahead here a little bit.
Yeah, we're.
I'm trying. Transportation maintenance is where I'm going here.
What line number is that?
Sorry, 15-30. We increased that by $2,000. We have 2 trucks, both water and sewer pay. Water uses the truck a whole lot more than sewer side. One of the trucks is 2011, needs a lot of work. It probably is past its useful life, but we understand we wouldn't be popular here tonight asking for a new truck, so we plan to do a little bit more work on it. That's why that's increased from the 2,000 up to 5,000. Down, another one you might question, contractual engineering. There's items that needs to be done now and then that would be a little bit outside what we would typically do for operations. So we dropped that from 7,000 last year to 5,000 this year because we didn't really need it. So there's not that many things, but if we were to do like a special bid package for more engineering side work, it's just small little things that we would do within the operation.
So do you anticipate, is there something you have in mind that you will need this line item for?
Yes, in fact, the hydrants, there's several hydrants that we need to get fixed that we can't do in-house, and we were going to do that also last year, but just because of everything, and it's also kind of related to the Main Street project, whether or not we're going to move forward with those hydrants before the project or not, because there's been concerns with them. Ours is that 25-50, that's the all the labor, staffing, insurance that we pay for the staffing overtime. All of that's all put into a lump sum. Training, clothing they get, and that type of thing. We're holding our fees flat. And Travis Jones, by the way, I didn't introduce him, but he's my operations assistant, and he's helping me with all the hands-on stuff on bottom along because he's doing the hands-on work here with the guys, helping them along and training them. So his costs are associated in this as well. So I just wanted to
So,
mention
quick question. So, you're not in Pittsfield all the time. You happen to be here because there are people that need your assistance and guidance, I assume?
Yeah, so I provide supervisory duties, which is everything from advisory to jumping in a hole if necessary.
Okay. So, how many people do you have that are here in Pittsfield working for you?
two full-time staff that are here all the time.
Tim and
Tracy. Yeah. And they also do weekend duties, so this also pays for the weekend duty work, which, is-
So this 90,000 is for those two in,
it's for any,
For all three.
and if we don't do it as an hourly rate, we do a lump sum, and
Right.
we give you that lump sum, and like last year, for instance, we blew our overtime due to issues with the tank, running it in manual, totally, and we did not ask for any more money, and we wouldn't do that. And we're willing to hold it flat another year, which, for us, I think it's fair, because I like to try to keep a town, secure, and they know what it's going to be for 2 years. But then we don't just go jack it up 10% or something like that. We'll do something like you're talking for, 3 to 5% or whatever we find. Heating, you might say, well, why isn't that a lot more? We're lucky that we mostly have propane heat, so we went up from 6,000 to 6,500 in propane. I burn propane at my house right now anyway, it's a good thing. Hasn't increased that much.
me too.
Yeah.
I would do that.
Insurances, that's pretty stable, 7,900. And then on the next page, if you go to page 45, there's a lot of debt that the water system already has. The two new debt items that caused the increase that will not hit this completely this next year are the 45-61 and 45-62. So 45-61 is Birchwood, and 45-62 is Honeywell and Potomac project. Those were items that were the council had approved to move forward. We don't yet have any grant funds for those. So they're simply put into the budget to show the impact that they would have on the budget. However, I will say they won't fully hit the budget. So I feel that would really realistically be closer to last year's number this next year. But we would have to think about raising rates if we were to go forward and do those projects without any grant.
Are those not the projects we've been talking about the last few months, past summer?
Yes,
Yes.
they
So
are.
they are, okay.
Yep, they are. They're nothing new.
So
that you
that's where
haven't
they
heard.
are in your budget?
Correct.
I.e. ours.
But that's not going to hit it such that it adds up to that number, but it would be unfair of us not to show you what that's going to look like, because we would need to plan
Okay, so
thinking of a rate increase if that does happen.
I have a question for you on that. So let's say 45-62. That's the highest one. Call that 200,000, just for argument's sake. So you're saying you're not going to be at 200,000 for the budget year 2023.
I know that because it hasn't been surveyed or designed or anything or bid. So,
So-
I know that for a fact.
So I guess my next question is, do we know what's going to be actual? We're looking, you've heard the discussion of other departments.
Yeah, I fully believe that that's probably going to not hit this next budget year.
Okay, so I guess my question is, why would it be included for the next year's budget if it's not going to be in that budget if you don't anticipate costs
I
against it.
understand that question. I think it's more just for full disclosure as to what these.
Okay. No, it would,
Yeah.
and I understand that,
Maybe it
however,
could have been-
It would probably be more of like a capital improvement versus in the budget itself, but I don't know.
well, no, I'm saying, we're looking at a line item for a
Right.
2023 budget
Yeah.
that essentially will have nothing to charge to it. So we're obligated now to raise taxes to cover $200,000 that will have no expenses to it. So, yeah, Catherine, please.
Yes, this is one, originally the projects were going forward, but it's taken longer for the funding agencies because there's so many applications. So we placed the funds in here anticipating that we will get some grant or ARPA funding because the debt service could be higher. So we know we're going to do the Birchwood Terrace project. We're not sure on the Honeywell Peltomer. We need to have both water and sewer. Right now, we've achieved the sewer, but not achieved the water. And we
What do you mean,
also,
what do you mean, gee, what?
in order to do the project, we have to get the funding from 3 sources, one for the road, one for the water,
Yeah.
one for the sewer. Sewer has been achieved or approved, but we haven't gone forward to get the main municipal bond bank payment yet, because you wouldn't want to go forward early and get a debt service before the project
No,
even begins.
no, I understand, but it's a simple accounting question. There's a line item that Annalisa said, likely, we're not gonna charge any money to 4562. However, by asking for it in this budget, we're obligated to ensure the taxes are in place that we're covering $200,000 for a 2023 budget, that we're told by the expert that would likely be no charges against that $200,000. So why do we have it in this year's
There
budget?
will be some charge, however,
But not the $200,000?
it could be any figure at this point.
Well,
So-
hold on.
Can I
Go ahead-
finish?
No, before you go any further. Annalise, let me ask you again. The 199,305, what do you anticipate to charge against that line item for 2023?
Well, my best understanding of what it would be would probably just be the design amount. And,
20 grand?
I mean.
A fraction. I'm going to say
it would be
20%.
It would be a small amount, but these would be user fees, so this is based not so much on, not to, confuse the issue, but these
Yes.
would be user rates. So we would just, obviously, we're not going to raise the rates for something that we're not ready to do yet, but we will have to be aware that that may have to be something that's worked on. So, yes, it would be, I would believe there would be a small amount of that would actually hit this budget.
Okay, but you understand my question?
I do understand your
Okay,
question.
all right, great, good.
I almost was sure that we had gone over this in July, and that we had,
We approved the project.
we approved the project.
Now it's being budgeted,
But
but
we asked the question about the water bill and what the impact would be to the water bill. The sewer was going to have to go up 9% based on the calculations that we came up with the 3 projects that we had. And I thought that I was told that the water bill was such that it would cover the projects that we had here.
The part of the project that we talked about at that time, that is correct.
Okay.
But that didn't include construction of Honeywell and Peltomer. These are just placed here because there will need to be some sort of debt service in there, which will likely be interest. However, the budget that was placed on the front of the budget is the same budget, $613,824. These are just placed here with the comment that if you're going to do these whole projects for the future, that you would need to do a rate increase or make a change or find money someplace or get a grant. But right now, we're going to have the same budget for both water and sewer.
Well, and it seems like this debt service line seems to be one that is year over year kind of, it's a dirty word, but for lack of a better word, a slush fund. Because we have it budgeted in 2020 for 146, we spent 74. In 2021, we budget 188, we spend 27. In 2022, we budget 189 to date, through September 67.
I think some of that, and if I could, you can go first, but I was thinking like Main Street got delayed. So some of
Okay.
that's it's not done to be a slush fund. I mean, I haven't been involved in, I know
That's
for
not a
sure.
hit towards you.
No, and I don't care even if it is.
That's a his-
but
no, that's
I'm
a
just
historical
saying,
thing.
I think the attempt is to be with me when I've done budgets, and I guess maybe it could have been an asterisk at the bottom or something to make it clear, but it is true that these projects would have a significant impact on the budget, and I think we just didn't want that to get lost in the shuffle.
No, and I appreciate that, that's
So
good.
if I can follow up, segue on you, and maybe it'll kind of help you answer your question there, Catherine. So, let's say with other departments, $20,000 put in there, they use 5, so that $15,000 is brought into the fund that's used to alleviate or cover other issues or costs. Are we doing the same thing with this?
It stays within the water enterprise fund, so it has its own fund. And the auditor requires that we budget for the exact debt service, which is these amounts. And then there's a transfer that's done to the loans amortization amount on the actual general fund for part of the cost.
Based on that it's an enterprise fund?
Yes. So we have to budget for the exact amount
Yeah,
of
so
what the
you,
debt
so you
service
can't, you
is.
can't consider this exactly like another department because it's an enterprise fund and the funds and the accounting are done differently. So what you're saying is that if, let's say line item 4562 at 199, call it 200, it's not going to be expended through 2023, but for the accounting requirements, we have to put what it's going to cost in there. That's what you just said.
But for the actual debt service that we had, we simply put this in here because when we started out with these projects, we're going to have a debt service payment, and this is what the amount would be. However, the projects are falling behind, we need to get the
Right,
approval.
understood. So let's take a project that's fallen behind. Let's say we spend $20,000 on it. We have $180,000 in that budget that's been budgeted that wasn't expended on that line item for 2023. Where does that go? How is that used? Is that used to pay off the debt service?
Eventually it will, yes. It stays within that fund.
So, okay, so do we have, so that fund, do we have extra in the fund, kind of like a big fluff account, like I won't say it either, but a slush fund?
No.
We don't have extras in there, so whatever's in there has already been accounted for and called for, so that if we did an accounting, everything's gonna come out to zero. And that's why we have these line item numbers.
It has to come out to be the same budget, and then you have such a high depreciation, and the system is not worth as much because it's so old. So many towns, when the depreciation was added in, ended up running in the red. We're okay, but if we add on more debt service, that may happen.
Yeah, okay. Eric, yeah.
So I have a question about the 45 accounts. So like 4530, we budgeted $45,805. In 21, we spent $3,674. Account 4550, we budgeted $49,000. We spent $10,000 in 21. 4555, we budgeted $3,700. We spent $4,500. What do these numbers mean? 4565, we budgeted $27,518. We spent $3,870.
So we budget for the exact amount of what the debt service is, and then there's a transfer that's done at the end of the year in which the principal goes onto the general fund and reduces the amount of the debt service.
It has to do with how an enterprise fund is worked. I don't understand it either. But the water and sewer being enterprise funds, the accounting apparently is different.
I mean,
So
1
it's
plus
the
1 always
exact-
equals 2.
It's the exact debt
Yeah.
service on the charts that we put in here. The only change is that we wanted to show you on Birchwood and Honeywell what the impact would be, but we're not increasing the rate, and we're having the same budget, 613,824. But once you do have these projects and you do the actual construction of Honeywell and Teltoma, if you decide to do it, it will have an impact on the water.
So budget on line 4530, where we budgeted $45,805, and we actually spent $3,674. There's a delta in another account somewhere?
Yes, there's an
Of the
entry that goes
41,000
onto the
or
general fund
42,000?
for the remainder of that. So the principal and the interest are separated.
So in 2021, when there was a $263,000 balance after the books washed, where is that?
The general fund. So that goes into the general fund.
Into the
263,000.
water enterprise general fund.
And water enterprise
Yeah.
general fund.
Yeah.
Okay.
Where does that come back? Like, where's that account?
Well, yeah, let me ask a question on top of that question. So is 260, was it 263? 263 balance at the end of 2021. I thought it came out in the wash.
Well, your revenue
Private fund.
is not as high, so we can't spend over what the revenue is. But this money goes in and balances out the water account and the sewer account at the end of the year.
So that money, that 263,000 hadn't been allocated to the cost of those two, of the water and sewer then? Because
It's
we
within,
did,
it's within the water account and within the sewer account.
I know, okay.
But we know that our water and sewer revenues are grossly under where they ought to be. So my question is, if there's a lack of billing and receiving in water, does that extra money in that account absorb that loss of the town? Like, we're at a year behind billing in some areas of
No,
town.
we're actually not.
Well, we were as of-
only in one area.
Right, but in some areas of Pittsfield, people haven't received a water bill in a year. So there was a cash flow question that came up a couple weeks ago that was a very valid one by Mike Lynch. To what happens to that loss if the town never receives that money? Is it coming from this general fund? Are we just
All right,
losing it with no
so
trace?
There is no one that hasn't been billed like.
No, I'm not asking about that. I'm asking about if there was loss of revenue. Let's say every bill's perfect and just 100 citizens didn't pay, and they're on payment plans, and they're only going to pay $10 a month. I'm making an example to say, like, if there's a delta of what you expect to receive revenue against what you gave for services, where does that loss from the town's perspective? Do we write that off at the end of the year out of the general fund?
So everything gets billed out, even if it's an accounts receivable, to balance out. So, for example, on 5 and 6, which was behind because of the meter issue and then the conversion, those will all get billed out and it's an accounts receivable posting. So then as the monies come in next year, it goes into the accounts receivable and balances it out.
And so that's reconciled whenever it happens. If it never happens, most people, like businesses, write it off at the end of the year to clear up the books because they can't track something into the next fiscal year that far.
Towns don't do that.
Okay,
Until
so
we
you
get
track
to a
that.
certain point, but we do have some old accounts, but what happens is that if the people want to put the meter in again, they have to pay up the balances on the account. It's like taxes, so you eventually get it, but it might be down the road.
So those losses aren't out of the general fund right now?
No, it won't affect
Okay, I
that.
was-
Now, some towns, because of this depreciation and the change in the accounting, and the fact that, revenues are down everywhere, the property tax has been brought in to pay for the water and sewer. So far, that hasn't happened here. We've been able to keep it close to being balanced.
So we should leave this alone and we should move on because we're saying it's 613 with an asterisk of that delta, right? Is that where we landed?
It will be the
That's-
613,824
Sorry, get it.
because the expenses in the revenue
Right.
budget have to equal,
Got it.
or we would have a rate increase or
Right,
something.
which we're not going to do.
Correct.
Not right now.
This year.
Ron,
I just would like to see for water and for sewer, I would like to see the custom budget for the last 3 years, if I could, on the revenue side.
Yes.
Okay. That's over and above what we're doing here tonight. That's in addition to, we can move on with tonight, I don't care, I just want to see it.
Side note on tonight's discussion though, when we're talking about that rate increase, I would suggest we don't wait 10 years and then bump it up
No.
55% to have everybody,
yeah, we had
Have
a
a heart
15,
attack.
20-year span, we kept the
Yeah.
water rates, we kept the taxes,
It
everything
was
flat, but
ridiculously
it's like a
bad.
farmer. You don't sow your crops back in, you get nothing out of it.
So can we vote
Exactly.
on this water bill, the water budget? Because it sounds like it's at
If,
613, right?
if we have no more discussions, any other questions or comments from anybody? Annalise, was there anything else that you wanted to point out as a hot button or a bullet point? Or?
Not really. I mean, we did increase purchase power lines just because of the price, cost of all that's going up. But other than that, there's nothing real notable left here.
So, significant bottom line, the majority of the increase of 215 has to do with the work that we had.
All of it is really due
All
to
of it, okay. And that's something that we discussed earlier this year in the summer. So we expected an increase, so here it is.
One quick comment. So if we're going to do this Honeywell Peltoma project, if we decide to do that, that was not one of the projects that we talked about. There wouldn't need to be a rate increase. That was on the clean water or the sewer. So if we're going to do this project in 2024, there will need to be a water rate increase, but not in 2023.
Again, I thought that was all done when we talked about, because we looked at 2 loans that were at a 1% interest rate. We looked at 3, Library Street was a third. And we said no because the infrastructure said it was good by all their records.
These are different projects.
I understand that, but these were the other 2 that were done that night. That seemed...
It's separate. I can.
No, it was Honeywell Avenue because we had the conversation about the size of the sewer at the end of it and how it was backing up in 2 residents' basements.
But this is a water project. The sewer.
I understand that, but we talked that we were going to do the water at that time, and I thought that we had that solved. I don't understand.
There would be no way to pay for this within the budget. It was the sewer that will not be an issue. I can pull out the notes from the meeting. There were so many projects at different times.
So then if the sewer wasn't going to be an issue, why were we getting a loan? I thought the whole idea of the loan was to cover.
We would always have to have a loan for sewer and water projects just because of the magnitude of the cost of them. We talked about a lot of projects. There were several meetings when we went over this. But in the water, if you're going to add on the Honeywell Peltoma, there would have to be a rate increase.
No, hold on. You keep saying that. I mean, we have $200,000 on a line item for Honeywell and Peltoma. Why do you keep saying if we add it on there? We're voting on putting it in there. I don't understand why you keep saying that.
You'll have to finalize your discussions on if you want to go forward with the project once we get the money. There's the steps that you go through.
So the next year we'll talk about Honeywell Peltoma. There's no, why don't we talk about it as a discussion item to get back to your point on that project. But for now, we have a $613,000 water budget. And we have this asterisk of this $200,000 that probably won't get spent this year. So let's, for tonight's sake, I think we're there.
Yeah, the budget will be 613.
Yeah.
You're going to stay on top of rate increases,
Yeah.
so they're not.
Yes, correct. We talked about that.
Yeah, that's kind of,
For another day, but.
yeah.
So we're actually
Get a lot of feedback.
We're actually discussing the budget of $829,354.
No, right.
The budget will
Right.
be 613,824, the same as previous.
It will be the same as the previous
Because we're not
year.
going to spend it, is what she's saying.
Maybe
Right.
the display, how we displayed this could have been clearer. I apologize for that, but we're really looking to keep the budget basically within the means of what it was.
So right now, we're going to vote to approve a budget for $613,824.
Yes,
correct.
Okay, yeah, that's very confusing.
That's what,
Yeah.
hey, a lot of things are.
So that goes to what you're saying about if we approve this and if we approve that. Okay, so so these line 45s that add up to 215,530, that was just for show, just to show us the impact.
It was to be clear about
It
the
was
future.
transparency.
Yeah.
It was transparency.
Yeah,
Exactly.
yeah. My apologies, council, anyone else, because I thought we were looking at the 829, it's already been put in there. So
We'll
that's why-
accept it. We'll accept it.
I did, Jason. I didn't know worries.
Greatly appreciated, my friend. So we are looking at the 613,824 budget, which was the same from the previous year. Any other questions or comments? Anybody? All right, let's go around the room. Pete?
Yeah, I'm good.
Okay. Good. Jason?
Yeah, okay.
Eric?
Yep.
Craig?
Yep.
Okay, I am also. So as written, the Water Enterprise Fund has passed, accepted 613,824. So let's move to the sewer which will be hopefully the next page. Look at that, next page, page 46. So, if you would, Annalise, can you just give us bullet points and point out the hiding lines there?
Okay, so I'll just go over the main items. I mean, some of this is pretty small items, but maintenance at the treatment plant, we do plan to do some added maintenance up there as far as painting the building. A lot of that we can do in-house, but some of it we can't. There'll be some purchase of some trim and that type of thing because the building does need some maintenance. There is the ongoing amount that we spend to get the berms mowed because we can't do that ourselves. And some work that we need to do on the inlet system. Basically, we call it kind of a grit collection. There's some maintenance and work that needs to be done with that. So that's what that $10,000 is for. Contractual, that's just a whole bunch of different things that's kind of listed out there. That actually has dropped from last year down to $35,750. Last year it was $47,928. We do flushing in the sewer system, and there's some money in there to do that work, $9,000 to do that. And some sewer maintenance and manhole raising. We do have ongoing issues with manholes under the pavement. So some of that will be the cost of getting those manholes brought up out of the pavement. So that's kind of what that line is for. Again, utility contract operations, we basically split it between the two, the water and the sewer, and that is the other half of it, the $90,000. So it's
Okay,
just flat.
so the 3 people, the 2 that full-time and the 3 work
Yeah,
occasionally.
and all the insurance and,
Well, the water and sewer and everything's
water and
180.
sewer, right.
All right, thank you.
And it is a pass-through, we don't mark up our costs.
Yep.
And then electricity, we held that flat, believe it or not, because we were looking under budget there. Things may change, it's only $1,500. I mean, it's really hard to have a crystal ball, like it's been said tonight, but it didn't seem like we were going to have a problem with that. Heating, we increased by $500. Again, like I said, we're propane, so it hasn't been an issue so much as with the oil, cost of oil. Some of these lines are pretty small. If you go down, again, down in the debt, there's the new debt, 45-61, 45-62, the Birchwood and Honeywell projects. Those probably are not going to hit full either to this budget, to be clear, but they're in here for full disclosure. And then if you go down under capital expenses, 60-70, that's around $40,000, and really what that's due for, sewer issues. We've had to fix a sewer down the road in one instance last year. This year, there's some areas with sewer that I'd like to fix, even if they're spot fixes, to try to take care of a problem and make it last longer. So that line is used for items such as that.
So that would include winter time, freezing.
Yeah, or if we have a plug up that ends up being the town's fault, not the citizen's fault, then we would a lot of times have to hire a contractor to come in and take care of it. Or if they have to come in, we have a drain company, they call it
Main drain.
Main drain. Yep, thank you. We have
Vortex.
them come in and do stuff, and just there's a multitude of things that go in there.
All right.
And then depreciation, again, it's kind of like something that you hope to raise funds sufficiently to keep money aside so that you can fix aging infrastructure. However, that's kind of like a paper number, that if for some reason we didn't get the revenue that we needed, we wouldn't necessarily have to put that money aside, but it's always recommended to do it. And then at the bottom, there are available sewer funds, and I'll let Catherine explain this too, but our actual budget that we are proposing, again, this may be confusing to the way we presented it, is the 501-350, which matches our expected revenue, but there are monies that are set aside for sewer that could be used to balance this budget out for this year if these 2 new projects hit the budget, which honestly, that full amount, because of delays, is not going to hit the 2023 budget.
Right.
So I think we'll be fine on the sewer side with the proposed budget of 501-350.
Okay. Any questions, comments? Anybody? Yeah, Lindsay, go
You
ahead.
can go first.
What's the difference between the 60-70 and 65-35? Breaks problems due to aging, increase in sewer improvements, and then depreciation.
Depreciation
Is that kind of the
is
same thing?
no, I mean, depreciation is like amount that the accountant would suggest you put aside for aging infrastructure.
Okay.
But it isn't actual money that you're planning to spend in the budget year.
Okay.
But it's shown in the budget because that's what, especially on the water side, they kind of require you to do that. When you do like rate increases, they want you to show depreciation. On the sewer side, it's really bad planning to not depreciate. But some communities, especially the smaller ones, can never put the depreciation away.
Okay.
I don't think that's true here. I think there has been money that's been able to be put away, which is a really good thing.
So is that a line item that's accrues from year to year to year?
I'll have to let Catherine answer. I don't know. That depreciation thing to me is like this number thing, and can't explain it properly.
It gets put against the amount of what the system is listed. Let's say it's listed at 30 million. It's going to be depreciated. So there's an amount that the auditor will come up with each year. So this is a guesstimate that's in the budget. It can change drastically, and it gets placed against the value of the system.
In the
It's an accounting item.
Right, but okay, but that $70,000, $73,000, that's a real money.
It's like the cost of use. So like your car, you buy a brand new car, in 5 years it's not worth that anymore, but you drove it for X number of years. You're using this system, so you have to depreciate the value. I mean, that's how I think about it.
Right, that's what you do, but it's not real.
It's not real money.
It's not real money.
So
It's real taxes that we have to account for.
That's
It's not out here.
It's a non-cash impact, right?
Right.
So why would it be on a cash?
We're required to put it into the budget under the gas fee requirement.
So you're going to collect, amongst us, taxpayers, you're going to collect $73,475 and then not pay anything.
In theory, you'd put that money and use it to improve your systems over
That's
time.
it.
Well, let's not talk about it. I want to know actual, where's that money coming from, where's it going to?
It's part of the overall budget per the gas fee general accepted auditing standards in which an amount has to be depreciated against the value of the system because it's going to go down each year due to its age. So this is a general journal entry that is made at the end of the year by the auditor. I'm not allowed to do it.
Right, but
So
my
that's
point
on the
is,
state somewhere.
you have $74,000 that we actually raised taxes to cover. So there's money expended for a line item that is just nothing.
It's a requirement of the federal auditing standards.
Right, again,
Is
so
it a requirement?
where does it go?
It gets put as a general entry into the overall general fund at the end of the year. So the general fund has it has the value of the system, it has the fund balances, has the accounts receivables, it has the debt service.
So that's why I'm an engineer, not an accountant.
But you guys do this with everyone you work with. They all make the budget.
It's all the bigger systems that can afford to do this. It's common practice. It isn't if there's extra money and that you can actually depreciate the amount. It isn't money that just goes nowhere. I mean, if you raise the rates, that money has to stay within the water infrastructure.
If we didn't do this
Yeah.
and we didn't put in the total amount of what the debt service is, our system would end up being in the negative after a number of years.
I have a question.
Yeah, hold on.
Go ahead.
Craig was up here.
Yes, no worries. Is there a year-end roll-up balloon payment that is coming due on some of these line items that are not reflected through September?
There are debt service payments that we're making now. There were a few in October, which if the system hadn't malfunctioned, you would have received and seen. And then there's a variety of payments that are due in November. Yes.
Okay.
They're not
I was just
balloons.
wondering why the disparity between a 31% usage on the operational budget, the expense budget, and a 70% collection on the revenue budget. Trying to find out why one was outpacing the other. The concern I have is, I understand we're saying that for this year, but if you look at historical, that's why I want to see the revenue budget over the last 30 years, because we are collecting on average, or we are spending on average 50% of our operational budget over the last 3 years. So if you look at your custom budget report, page 62, budget 2020, 501,350. Actual spend 217. Budget 2021, 501,350. Actual spend 222. So I understand that we're saying that, but this never catches up. But yet the revenue is showing a full gain of revenue. Where is that additional revenue going? I don't understand. I understand we say the fund, so then we should have a fund flush with cash. Like these boxes here maybe have some of that cash. I'm just wondering, I mean, I'm just kind of...
Flush, we're ahead of having a negative, like some communities have. So we have a fund balance.
Yeah, I mean,
Is this-
it's $275,000 each of the last 2 years.
I mean, it's...
Didn't the auditor say this when he did our audit, that we are in a very good cash position relative to other towns?
Relative to other towns.
That's what he was
yeah.
speaking to, was this thing, this very
That's
thing.
part of it, yeah.
When he was
This
here.
enterprise fund, that's what he was talking about.
The
Speak to the general fund.
The enterprise funds. Some
Let's start
communities
using them.
have
Yeah.
run their systems into the ground, and then the water sewer
let's
rates
just
would
sit
be
on
so high that they have to use.
Right, right, understood.
Can I see the
However,
ledger on that fund?
I'm sorry, go ahead.
Can I see the ledger on the fund? Is that available to us? Because that obviously must have an incredible debt balance.
Well,
Something
it-
that could take care of some projects that we're talking
It
about.
also
That
has-
Funding through loans, which is a direct impact on taxes
So
on
it
it.
also has a very huge debt service in it too. So the whole thing has to balance out and be above zero.
So is debt service not coming out of the operational budget? And it's,
Some of it is, but we have to make an entry to put the remainder into the general fund.
but why wouldn't that be a line item on this then, for us to see where that additional money is spent? I don't understand.
Because it's in a different part of the budget. This is your actual budget. And then there's a general fund where the depreciation is, the fund balance is all the debt service and the value of the system. So it all has to be above zero in the end.
And
Would it be-
we have that in here?
No.
But I think it's in our audit book.
Yes.
It's in your audit book.
Yeah, it's in the audit.
And here's another question.
Thank you.
Could we, for the sake of this, vote on this, but before we finalize the budget, December 6th, 9th, whatever, but between now and then, we have a couple of meetings, we can talk about this as a discussion item and track the money that might be left over and figure out, is there a way, I don't know who we ask, the auditor, the lawyer, I don't know, the municipal.
Why'd you look up?
I'm just thinking of what entity could answer this question.
Accountant.
Clearly, we might not have the answer here tonight, and so it might be valuable to table it. Or not table it, pass the, whatever, get the preliminary budget
With
through.
an asterisk.
And then figure out, can we take some of these dollars, if there is money somewhere, and utilize them? Maybe we have to ask the auditor or a different person, but is there a way to just kind of not increase any rates in the next 12 months because we know we have money somewhere that's...
And I think we are, not to
Files.
interrupt you, but we're kind of proposing that if we
Yeah.
did move ahead with those projects, to take 99,000 of those funds to
Because
make
they're
that
there
happen.
based on the numbers,
That's
right?
what Catherine
Yeah.
was suggesting we
Yeah,
do.
as long
Well-
as we don't take
But-
too much out and then have the system go into the negative.
Right, no, because that would be bad.
And there's sludge reserve money that's set aside
Yeah.
too,
Let's do it.
that will need
Well,
to be
so
used.
that.
Yeah.
Yeah, go ahead.
You still have the sludge fund, right?
Yes.
And that's got 200 and...
Slush.
No, there's sludge. I'm talking actual sludge. It is a sludge fund. Not slush. Sludge. That's we have 213 or 200
You
somewhere.
did.
Yeah, we did.
Investments have gone down, and the investment agent indicated don't try to take it out and move it. It will go up when the bonds mature. But right now, it's under the amount it's supposed to be.
When we look to have bond mature,
They mature next year, so it'll get back up there.
We want to keep that in mind.
Yeah.
yeah,
You know, I thought that
Note
was
to
what this
self.
was, but it's not.
bond mature on that sludge fund. Yeah, that's been
The actual sludge.
So,
12, 14,
That
15 years.
monopoly card.
So what Annalise just said, if that money is pulled from the fund, that will show as a revenue line item then for us to,
I'm sorry.
if that money is pulled from the fund, will that show as a revenue line item?
You can do it as a revenue line item. We just have to make sure that we keep the budgets at the exact amount they're at now.
Understood. I want to be able to see when the money's moved, right? If it's in this budget as an expense, it needs to come back in this budget as a revenue.
Yes.
Right, okay. All right.
It used to be a lot easier until they changed the general accepted auditing. It made it a lot more complicated for the enterprise.
Sure.
So the auditing industry did that, or the municipalities and state did that?
The auditing industry did that. It's a standard that we have to follow for the municipalities.
I hate auditors. Go ahead, Jason.
Just real quick on 1515, that $10,000 for maintenance, that's not something that Donnie and that crew can do?
I think.
Painting the building and...
Well, the painting the building,
Huh?
we can probably do ourselves without Public Works, but like with the berms and stuff like that around the lagoon, it's a safety issue. It's really steep and they're like right near the water.
We really need to hire somebody that has a tractor with the opposable arm.
Don't we have that?
We have one.
I don't know if it's set up, I don't know if it's made.
I know we have one. I've watched it operate,
Okay,
but,
great.
yeah, I'm just saying,
And the roof, the roof may not be able to be done for that too, but I mean, there are many needs there that.
right, and I'm not
very
saying you can't
much.
do it, I'm just thinking
Yeah.
like, well, so can we, and we're paying these guys stuff.
I mean,
Do stuff.
that's not I don't care.
I mean,
as long as
that's
we
certainly
keep
something
up
that can
with
be
it.
considered between now and then. I mean, I don't know if Donnie or the predecessor have ever been approached about doing that. I mean,
I think I think we talked about it, but it's very steep. We would have to do a safety assessment and then double check on insurance.
Well,
see, that's the thing about
berms
that.
are super wide.
They are, but they're very steep though.
Well, I realize that, but they also have the little reach boom.
I know, but then you got the tractor's up there too. The tractor has tires for roadside, not for that kind of surface. I don't know.
For 10
I'm
grand,
not an expert.
the conversation might.
That's certainly something we
That's
talk about.
multiple things, not just for that one thing.
I know that.
Yeah.
I know that.
Yeah,
But
just to be
I'm
clear.
just saying,
Yeah.
we have.
Yeah.
There should be people that could possibly
We,
do that.
we did talk about it. It's a good point.
Right.
Heather, you had a quick comment?
Oh, I was
Yeah, the
just going to
floodgates
comment
can be
that,
used.
$10,000 worth of maintenance work and time on that building, to throw that into Public Works, you need to increase Public Works budget probably by that amount and maybe add some hours in there for them to do that in addition to all the other things that.
Yeah, that's the
that
flip
they
side of
can
the coin.
accomplish.
Yeah.
So,
No,
move it in
it's
this
a-
budget or put it in that budget, I'd say save it in this budget where Annalise.
No, it's a
Yeah.
talking point. No, I agree, but it's a talking point. I mean,
I think it's much cheaper for us to do it. That's my point.
so anything else you wanted to highlight on this, Annalise? You all set with that?
I'm good.
Ready to roll the dice?
I'm ready to roll the dice.
Any other questions, comments? Pete?
Not to add length of discussion, but
That's okay.
a year ago,
We will feed up.
the line items for Birchwood and Honeywell that you said that we're not going to do comes to like 162,647, which would bring our budget amount down to 437,938 instead of the 500.
So
1,350.
it's been approved in the past based upon the rate review.
Just to
that
go
it
by the
should be
regular
the
number.
501,350. So it will stay as that.
But did you say that the sewer has been approved for the 3 funding sources? Is that the project you're talking about? Yes, they
Sewer
were.
has an approval for Birchwood, the system for the actual work on Birchwood, and now we need to get the water to go along with it. We don't want to start one without the other.
Right, but Ann Lisa said that 45, 61, and 62 probably isn't going to happen.
Not the full amount. I
Not
mean, there
the
may
full
be
amount.
some,
There'll
some
be
a little
interest
bit.
payment
Yeah,
for
yeah, it won't
sure.
be the full
A
amount.
surprise interest payment that happens to the town.
That's what, yeah, insurance.
We
Yeah,
all
you
those
way to get
supplies
it.
interest payments. Anything else? Yeah, right.
Utility contract operations, 90,000. Could you elaborate a little further on the details of that, and what's the difference between that one and the same line item under the water book?
Sure. So we had been hired to do the contract operations for the community, and the total of the two is 180, and we simply split it between the two budgets. So we hire all the people that work here, work for our company. They certainly don't make that kind of money, but when you look at what you pay somebody a fair wage and their insurance, dental, health,
So basically,
401k,
it's salaries and-
it's salaries, all the insurance, all their training, all the clothing allowance, overtime pay. They get a 401k with our company. We treat everybody the same, whether they're an engineer or they're an operator. So everybody gets the same treatment. That would be some of Travis Jones has been in the field for many, many years, and I've been doing this for way too long. I won't tell you how many years. It's becoming quite obvious how many. So our expertise in management and helping make sure things get done correctly is, all our time is fit into there. I will say we don't make any money on contract operations. We do it as a service to only the communities that we've worked in for a long time. So basically, it's staffing and insurance and all of that. And when the town decided to go that route, they compared their actual staffing costs. If it had been staffed with, at that time, there was just one person there, but if they had staffed it with two people, because that was just not enough people, and it really was no different. So there's not really a big cut if you're looking to suggest that they go back to the way it was, which is fine by me.
No, I didn't know what we had before.
Yeah, I'm just noting that it really wasn't much of a difference.
Yeah, I just wanted some more details of what that was.
Yeah, I know it's a big number. It looks scary when you put it right there, but before it used to be spread out amongst a whole bunch of different line items.
Yeah.
Because we pay the workers' comp and everything on the staff. So that,
What's the name of your company?
Ulver Associates Incorporated. Yeah. Today I was told it was Ulver and Sons, but it's Ulver Associates.
Well, I've argued with strangers how to pronounce my own name, so.
Yeah.
Anything else for council? So what we're discussing is the $501,350. It's not the $600. So what do you say, Pete?
I'm good.
Lindsay? Good? Craig?
Yeah, I'm good as long as we get the additional items we asked for by confirmation time.
Specifically,
Go
you
ahead.
have that written down?
Have those items.
Revenue items.
Yeah, as a follow-up, but we're acting on the budget. Okay. Eric?
Good.
Okay. Jason?
All set.
Yeah, I am too on 501-350, so that takes care of sewer enterprise fund. That, ladies and gentlemen, takes care of it. So before we adjourn, I'm sorry? Yeah, I'm gonna review that. So the fire department, police department. Well, let's go. The fire department's gonna move to 11:15 meeting with a request that we have more detail on the pro line item between the town manager and fire chief Bernard Williams. The police department, animal control, usually considered the same department. At least have a representative here to respond to questions that the council has. If there are specifics, I make suggestions. If there are specifics on the police department that we would have as a council, given that our former chief has retired and we have a stand-in acting chief right now, he may not be privy to the specific line items. So if you could share that with the town manager and she could pass that along to acting chief Cochran, that'll give him a little time to maybe do some research if needed. Because otherwise he'd have to take notes and come back again for the next one. So with that, I'll look for a motion for adjournment.
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Second. Moved and second. Thank you all very much. We are adjourned. So this is where Daddy takes a deeper away. We just had fun.
Tell me I'm wrong.
Controls.
Yeah.
So we had it on, they do that, and they basically pretty much but that's.
So do you have an automated system now?
It's got speed.
What's it run off?
It runs off the,
The SCADA package?
the brand, it's run by Mike Rio, Mogus Enterprises. I don't know the details.